Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to Mindgasms. I am Andrew, aka Emo Mindgasms, for the purposes of this chat. And then we have, I think you said, Dusty, that Japanese character means Woku Centrist, which is awesome because it's a combination of woke and Goku. And got
Well, there's no K sound by itself in Japanese.
okay,
So those characters basically mean woke.
okay,
It's
and then
it's like using a because woke is its own word with its own definition that's
yeah,
completely not tied to woke. You know what I mean? Like
right.
being awake. So when you write it in Japanese, woku is just basically um, the way Japanese works is there's a complete alphabet used to spell out and say foreign words. So to say woke in Japanese, you'd have to say woku
Oh, that's interesting.
because
Oh, okay.
Japanese, they're all syllable sounds. There's no like single consonant sounds. So that first one says wo and the second one says ku.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting.
Hmm.
All right. Anyway, also got Tubin, aka Chris James here, and we're going to talk about the new Batman movie, The Batman, and compare it to The Dark Knight, and talk about whether it's woke or not, because Ben Shapiro thinks it is, and we're going to analyze Ben Shapiro's review, and also the YouTuber Vaush's review, and then also my friend Jared Bauer's thoughts on it too, which I like more, and talk about how it's basically a film noir detective Batman, which is very interesting, and it brings up the theme of vengeance versus hope in terms of Batman fighting crime. And there's the Catwoman, and there you could easily see the themes of racism, corruption, dirty cops, and then we have the Penguin and the Riddler. Uh, the Penguin played amazingly by Colin Farrell. You don't even recognize him at all. And then the Riddler is a really interesting villain as well. So I guess before we get into these clips, when I get your I guess I'll say my kind of just general thoughts on it first, and then we can get your guys' thoughts on it. I would say I think it's interesting because I've never seen the film noir detective Batman before in a movie form, at least one that I can remember because I haven't seen the older ones in a while. And I like that they kind of turn the theme of Batman as vengeance on his head, and he decides at the end to be more of a symbol of hope instead of vengeance. And yeah, there's a really like the detective, just the it being about solving a mystery, and how Thomas Wayne, Bruce Wayne's father, they basically took him down from the noble figure that he's been in other depictions of Batman. I like how they approached it differently, but I still like, as most people probably do, the Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy with Christian Bale the most, because I still like that approach to Batman about him just having this incessant problem with vengeance and being attached to his parents' death to the point that he can never let go of it, and that's his fundamental flaw, and that kind of stuff. But like I said, I still like the different approach to it too. So Chris, what do you think about the movie in general?
Yeah, I'm with you. I like the Christopher Nolan trilogy a bit better. Not to say that this Batman was like pretty horrible, and I assume there's going to be a second and third movie after this. They hinted at lots of sequel
Yeah.
avenues. But yeah, this was like, I don't know. I didn't know what to expect. Just because I don't know, the Batman character has been played by Bale, Keaton, Ben Affleck. You know, there's different actors that have taken on this role, and some have been good, some have been okay.
What about
But
George Clooney?
sorry, yeah, George Clooney too. I forgot about that. Yeah,
Val
I mean,
Kilmer?
you could always go. Yeah, Val Kilmer. You could always
Adam West?
Adam West. That's right, the original one. Yeah, there's been a bunch. But yeah, I did like this one. It was better than I expected. It was long, man. It was like I think it's just like under 3 hours. So
Yeah, about 3 hours, almost exactly, I think.
yeah, since I'm an old fuck and I have kids, I ended up watching it in like an hour here and then an hour here and then another hour here. So I can
I think
unfortunately
that was kind of similar to how I watched it too. Yeah.
yeah, I can sit down and watch it in one setting. But yeah, real quick, touch on some good points. I really enjoyed the cinematography. I know it was dark. When I watched it at night, it was really cool. I had all the lights down, and you know, got the way Gotham City is like, you know, always raining and always kind of gloomy and shot with dark tones, and like the city is actually kind of reminds me of like the way they set up the city in the Joker, kind of like a real shithole. You could kind of relate to it in a way. It's like I don't know, my downtown where I live is probably not the same, but you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of homeless people and it's you know, garbage all over the place. So yeah, I thought the cinematography was really good. I really liked the car chase scene. The acting was good.
Yeah, Robert Pattinson did a good job as Batman and Bruce Wayne, I think. I was pleasantly surprised. He's a pretty good actor in spite of making it big in the first place for the fucking Twilight films. He's a really good actor.
Yeah, it's good, but he didn't. I don't know. He didn't knock it out of the park for me because I feel like he
Yeah, he's
was the
not the best
same.
Batman.
No, he's not, and he's kind of like a grunge Batman, where he was just kind of like emo or something like that. You know what I mean? But there was
Yeah, he
no
was emo
like,
Batman. Yeah.
you know, the Bruce Wayne character generally is like clean cut. You could say like conservative, like, you know, rich, and like there was no the difference between those two characters wasn't as distinct in this film, I found. And yeah, I just yeah, he was good. I just he wasn't a 10 out of 10. I would give him like a 7 or an 8 out of 10. Like it was good. It just wasn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, what else real quick? And then we'll pass it to Dusty. Yeah, it was good. It was long. It was
Did you think the pacing was slow for the length of it though?
in
Because
parts.
I found the pacing to be pretty good actually, even though
In
it was super
parts.
long. Okay.
I did found the pacing to be slow. I want to say like 3/4 of the way through. Like I don't know, at the beginning it wasn't, and yeah, there's some parts that were like, yeah, you know, I didn't even look at the clock or whatever, right? So I don't know. It wasn't consistently fast throughout the way through. I knew it was a long movie, but again, it's hard to tell because I didn't sit down and watch it all in one sitting. I broke it up in parts, so that could have just been me thinking that it was longer than it was, just because I had to, you know, watch 40 minutes here, 40 minutes there. So
And and it's like the pacing is affected too because it's more of a film noir detective story, and it has that, you know, grungy city feel like you were talking about. And one thing that I've heard people talk about that I think Ben Shapiro mentions this too, and I think this is one thing he actually gets right. It's clearly influenced by the kind of David Fincher 90s dark type of movies like Seven or Fight Club or something like that. It kind of similarly in terms of the cinematography, like you were talking about.
yeah, I think you can notice the difference in, like, if you compare like the Riddler when what's that guy's name? The funny man played him in the 90s, Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey.
Oh yeah.
Compared to like the Riddler in this movie, which is like a kind of like a Saw, kind of like a, you know, murderess. I don't know, like more like actual scary. You know what I mean? Like
It's like
just the
a
difference in those.
fucking crazy psychopathic mass murderer incel.
Mhm. But like two different, like two two different worlds or dimensions, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I liked how there was more of an evil spin. The Colin Farrell as Penguin, I didn't even know that was him. It was
I didn't
like,
even know either until I heard about it from somewhere else. Like, I think maybe someone talking about it on YouTube. I was like, that was fucking Colin Farrell. That
yeah.
seems like it was everyone's reaction to him being in the movie.
That's what
Well,
Joe
'cause
Rogan said too.
Yeah, I was going through.
Yeah.
I was Wikipediaing some of the movie and the people that were playing, and then I think I was looking up Pattinson and his Twilight movies or something like that. I don't know. You know, you get on Wikipedia and just you get lost in it, right? And then I was going through like all the cast of the movie, and I was like, wait, Colin Farrell's in this movie? I was like, get the fuck out of here! It's like, you can't even like the makeup is really good.
Yeah, he looks like a big fat New York or New Jersey mobster guy with scars on his face.
Mhm.
Yeah, so just to round it off. I mean, it was a good movie. I'm with you. I think that the Val Kilmer. Sorry, man,
Christian Bale.
Yes, thank you.
Val Kilmer.
Yeah, the Christian Bale Batman trilogy was where my head is at. So maybe like I already had that bar set before I watched this film, and it didn't like obviously go over top of that, but it came like it was way better than I thought it would be. Like I thought honestly it was going to be like, I don't know, my mind is like pre-programmed to think that I'm going to sit down through a bunch of like woke bullshit as soon as I watch some of these
movies,
right?
Exactly.
And I didn't think that had that, like there was that one, the white privilege scene that I'm sure that we could talk about, but other than that, like it wasn't like in my face the whole time, you know what I mean? It's not like there was pride flags attached to the Batmobile. I don't know exactly.
Yeah. Like mostly there were more black characters, and it's not like they like Dusty, you and I have talked about this at least a few times. It's woke if it just seems like they're just using black people as pawns, and they're just like, okay, let's put a black person there, not for any particular reason, and it's obvious that we're just putting them there because they're a black person. That's something that's woke. But if it's just a black person that's playing a role and they're doing a good job of the acting and their role makes sense with the plot, then that's not a woke thing. That's just they pick the best actor for the job. And that's like that's basically what was happening in this movie. They just had different actors, and I like that they had a different approach to it, and they weren't trying to be like basically kind of a copy of The Dark Knight or anything like that.
Yeah, I think they were aiming like for their own kind of dimension. You know what I mean? Like I don't think they wanted to be like how Batman was in The Dark Knight or how Ben Affleck plays him in like the DC
Justice League universe.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
So good overall. Just I don't know. I'm interested to see where they go with it too, right? I think like
apparently there's going to be a sequel.
Well, yeah, I think so. But who's going to merge as the kind of,
Yeah.
Is it going to be Colin Farrell? Is it going to be, I don't know.
Oh, the next villain, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, the next villain.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. We can talk more about this later, but with how he decides he wants to be more of a symbol of hope and that he can't fix Gotham by just punching criminals in the face. Like logically, that would mean for the next film he's gonna, I don't know, go around and volunteer at homeless shelters and try to build new buildings and start infrastructure projects or something like that. That wouldn't be a very exciting Batman movie.
Well, we're probably just not going to see emo Bruce Wayne, I think.
Okay.
So in the next film, it's probably going to be like the more philanthropic Bruce Wayne, because we know in the film he was always being prodded and poked by having all this money but not helping out with it. So I think that's kind of going to change like the Bruce Wayne side of things, but I'm thinking like the Batman side of things is going to be mostly the same.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, what did you think about the movie in general, Dusty?
I thought it was pretty good. Like, I really liked the film noir aspect. It kind of, that's for me, that's like a throwback to the animated series. As there were a lot of the animated series did kind of do the film noir thing. Like they even, well, not in this film, but in the animated series, they had like an Art Deco type of aesthetic to everything. So they kind of built it upon the Detective Batman. Um, yeah, the grittiness was pretty cool. I did see the influence from like David Fincher and Seven, and this is definitely like very, very influenced by Seven, just by how you have a killer leaving clues, and then you gotta like find out the clues and get to the next possible crime scene. So
And get
it is
through his
the
crazy notebooks and journals for clues too.
right. So it's I know they're really, really influenced by that. I thought it was interesting that they used the Riddler as the main villain.
Yeah,
I was like, who's this freaking weird guy in the gas mask? And then like, okay, I think I know where they're going here now.
yeah.
I thought the Riddler performance was kind of weird. Like, just when he talks at length, he just, I don't know, it just seems too odd to me, like almost overacted. I guess incel like if an incel like tried to take some acting classes but wasn't very good at it.
I
I don't know, something like that.
wonder how much it's kind of supposed to seem that way, because it kind of seems to me like it's supposed to seem that way, like he's just this awkward incel dude who hates everyone.
Yeah, and I kind of got lost like in his motivations. Like I was able to get like why he was doing what he was doing, because he kind of was a type of vigilante, and he was kind of tackling the corruption in the city. I totally didn't get the end where he just starts blowing stuff up. Like I have, like that just doesn't, I just don't get it.
Well, because he is vengeance, so he's gonna get vengeance upon. So he just spreads his vengeance so that the whole city is responsible to him for his fucked up life. So he wants to just take revenge upon the whole city instead of just those responsible. I think that's what it's supposed to be.
Okay, I guess it's kind of a weird roundabout way to do it. Like,
Well,
It is, yeah,
I think also like he's like the other Batmans are like he's like a loved character, and when they throw up the light where Batman shines, everybody's like, "Fucking right, Batman's here to save the day." Whereas this Batman, like, he shows up at the police station and all the cops hate him. You know what I mean? Like, this is not a Batman that's well liked. So I get you on motivation there. Like, why isn't this Batman kind of like, fuck you guys? You know what I mean? If you don't like me anyway.
yeah.
well, yeah, because I know Gordon, like Pete Gordon is Gary Oldman,
I
but
agree.
I did see a lot of parallels between this movie and the Gotham show because Gotham focuses on the mobsters quite a bit more
Yeah,
so
yeah,
than like the villains that you know uh like what's his name, Falcone plays like a huge part in
yeah.
the
Yeah,
show.
that's another similarity between this one and the Dark Knight trilogy, especially Batman Begins, right? We have some of the same villains and played by different actors, of course, but there's a very I like the different direction they went with that plot, with Falcone being involved in some political and financial corruption with Thomas Wayne, Bruce Wayne's father, and they end up covering up an accidental murder and all that kind of shit. That's more interesting. That aspect, I think, is more interesting than where they go with those mob characters in Batman Begins.
Yeah, so I like it that they're able to hash out Batman's, at least not his past, but the past of his family. And then we see that his father did this one bad thing that totally ended up getting himself killed ultimately, because he didn't want to. He was running for office and he didn't want to drag his family's reputation into the limelight to get destroyed by the press.
Yeah.
But and then apparently, I guess Batman's mother was crazy or something. Kind of like the Joker's mom.
Yeah, basically.
So,
that is similar in that way too, right?
yeah, so they both had crazy mothers, according to the most, recent movies. That I don't know if they're going to try to tie these two universes together. I don't think so, because I think in the end they kind of had some type of Joker cameo, and it
Yeah,
didn't.
they had that in the end credits sequence. They had the Riddler talking to the Joker in prison. I don't like. I didn't even recognize the actor, but I don't like the sounds of that new Joker.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, another freaking new Joker. It's like,
Yeah.
why do they have so many goddamn changes with the characters? It's just, it gets a little confusing. So you have Jared Leto, and then you have Joaquin Phoenix, and this new guy. It's like we got 3 Jokers within like the past 5 or 6 years. It's
Yeah.
kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
3 Jokers and 2 Batman.
Yeah.
But they'll keep going because it's all superheroes from here on out. Like you could make the case that all this shit has been fucking way overplayed, man. How many Star Wars films has there been? And I mean, even the Marvel universe,
Well, since the first movie, though, they have kept the same actors, so
far.
So far, yeah. So there haven't been any replacements, So
yeah.
I guess that's what gets confusing because, all of the Marvel stuff, it's all tied together. It's all in universe. And then you have all of this DC stuff where some of it's tied together and a lot, like half of it's not. And then, that's what.
They can't make up their mind about what universe to stick with. Marvel did that, and they stuck with a consistent universe. But with DC, they keep just doing just like rebooting everything without sticking to a consistent thing. Like we talked about
The
this when we
Cosmere
were.
effect,
Yeah. We were talking about this when we discussed the Snyder cut of Justice League. Like a lot of people wanted them to go in the Snyderverse direction with DC from then on, and then they decided not to, and they're not go. And that, like, it seems like they're just having different Batmans in parallel universes. I think I might have heard something about that, how they're just going to continue Batman series with different actors. I don't know if they're going to actually do that or not, but they would have
ways that they bring them through the plot. Like what Batman was it where he goes to China and he learns how to become pretty much a ninja.
Isn't that Batman Begins? Is that
Batman Begins?
the first Christian Bale ones?
Yeah. Right, and
I think he goes to Tibet or something.
Totally missing from this line of Batman, you know what I mean, series. So, things are going to be different, but it gets confusing.
What do you think though about this Batman being pretty much bulletproof?
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that aspect of the way that combat is done in this too. It's way more simple, and he's not dodging and jumping around and stuff. He just has stronger armor, and it's basically totally bulletproof, like you said. And instead of there's this theatrical moment when you see him first attack some bad guys, and basically he usually does that just him walking right through the front door or walking right through a door in front of them instead of dropping down theatrically and grabbing them from behind one by one. I thought that was interesting. I like the other ways that they do it, like the Christian Bale type of combat, but I thought that was interesting too.
Yeah, they make it pretty explicit that he's not high flying Batman. And when he does attempt those maneuvers, he gets like really fucked up. Because I think there's
Yeah.
this part where he jumps off a roof and he's like opening up his bat bodysuit and he can't land it right and he just gets totally jacked up and he's
Yeah.
just like limping along trying to get away. So he's not
Yeah.
very good at all, you know, with the acrobatic stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. And that's another different thing too. He's only 2 years into his career as Batman, which is a different place for the start of a Batman story because it's not the origin story like the Dark Knight trilogy is with the first one, and it's not older later Batman like Ben Affleck. It's when he's 2 years in and just starting to be Batman. So that's an interesting different aspect too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like kind of they took a very minimalist approach to this Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Because his gadgets aren't insane. They're not insane gadgets. His Batmobile is like the most basic of basic things.
It's muscle car with an engine fire.
It's basically a Mad Max car.
Like, it is. I was thinking that too.
It's like a Mad Max vehicle that's like super sturdy and, you know, can get into some action without like getting messed up. Because he didn't really have any gadgets on that thing. It was just really strong and sturdy, and it had like a boost capability.
Yeah. I think superhero fans are more longing for that similar or that type of action hero. You know what I mean? Like
the minimalist one.
Yeah, like I think it gets stale when the guy, you know, jumps across 5 buildings and, you know, and takes out 20 guys with AK-47s and not a, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
when it becomes like so, like it's all super unrealistic to begin with. Obviously, you have to put your head into a mindset of like you're in a different universe and that. But when it becomes like ridiculous, I think people, I don't know, there's something to it where like hand-to-hand combat and the guy is like holding on by a thread and then he comes back, you know what I mean, and wins, versus like a gunfight or like I don't know. I do like the minimalist approach better than
and it can be more interesting when the hero faces more challenges and has a more difficult time winning too.
Although like I would say this, like that I can remember watching Batman Kids when I was growing up, and like the unveiling of the Batmobile in every Batman film was always and they always one-upped it as they went along, like to the point where I think like the last Michael Keaton Batman, or no, maybe it was the
Michael Keaton Batman had the best Batmobile. There's just no question to that.
Is that the one with the circle in the middle and the?
Yeah, it's the one with the long front.
Yeah,
and it has like a jet in the back, and it's like all black.
But didn't they like pimp the shit out of it by the time this third movie got like it had like?
Well, yeah. Once they got to the other movies, it was like weird and neon parts were added to it.
Yeah.
Because I know that the animated series Batmobile is based off of the Keaton Batmobile.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I gotta answer this call.
Oh, okay. I'm looking up the Michael Keaton Batmobile here because I don't remember what it looks like.
You know what? I might be wrong. I might be thinking of the Val Kilmer Batmobile. One of them is ridiculous. And what I'm getting at is like this Batmobile is just, like I said, a muscle car with an engine that looks like it's on fire. So like there's not that, you know, it's a cool car obviously, but it's not like, you know, how it was back in the day. How it was like it was almost a character in the movie as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And with the Dark Knight, we saw like basically it's a tank, and then with the Ben Affleck Batman, it basically one upped even that one.
Oh.
Is this the Michael Keaton Batmobile? Can you see that?
Yes. Yeah.
Is that the one?
The biggest one there.
What was the?
Yeah, I had a die cast of that when I was a kid.
Oh, okay. Oh, cool.
Yeah, that was actually a cool Batmobile.
All right.
One of the better ones for sure.
Yeah, I don't remember anything about I probably remember maybe 1% of that George Clooney Batman. That one.
Yeah, me too.
That one.
The only
know
thing
what?
I
and that
remember
one.
are the
back and-
one-liners, the
Yeah,
Schwarzenegger one-liners.
And that one, yeah, the one with Schwarzenegger is Mr. Freeze or whatever his name is, and and Poison Ivy. Uma Thurman is Poison Ivy,
Yeah, that's
and
right.
Batman
Bane
and
was in there,
Robin, the
too.
Chris O'Donnell one, and is the one where is that the one where Tommy Lee Jones is Two-Face also? I don't remember.
All those goofy ones. So the Val Kilmer and George Clooney era was kind of like the super campy, goofy Batmans.
Yeah, I do want to go back and like watch them now that I'm like, because
Yeah, me too.
After I watched this one, I was like, shit, I should go back and watch the Christian Bale once again.
Yeah, maybe we should do movie chats on those ones too, because those are the best ones, definitely.
Yeah,
we
the
could
Dark
do
Knight.
the Dark Knight trilogy. Yeah, we could talk about them all eventually. All right, you guys want to get into Squeaky Ben Shapiro's review of the Batman here?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't watch his review. I didn't even know he reviewed movies. I just thought he.
Yeah, it's good. It's funny.
Politics.
Yeah, it's not like high intellectual stuff. It's it's funny.
Well, it's like
last-
I can
Sorry,
remember.
go ahead.
Like I remember once he did. What was it? He was singing hip hop lyrics, or he was reviewing hip hop, or something like that. And he was talking about.
Oh,
hip-hop,
when
and
he
it
was
just like,
complaining about Cardi B's "Wet Ass Pussy" song. Is that
Maybe
when he was
something like
reading
that.
reading the lyrics and saying like, "Listen, my wife is a doctor. Okay, if anyone has a vagina that's wet, you've got a serious medical problem. Okay."
Yeah. I
Uh,
just like he likes music apparently, and
Yeah, but he's like he only likes classical music.
yeah, and I don't know. I always find that people that say that, because I love music, like I'll listen to any kind of music, country, whatever, right?
Mhm.
So he's always been hard on hip hop, and I love hip hop. And it's always like, if you're a real lover of music, I think you would be open to loving any aspect of music. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And the fact that he dismisses hip hop just because of its probably vulgarity. I don't know. It's obviously short minded, but I wouldn't take him seriously as a music. You know, I would never go to Ben Shapiro for music reviews, though, right? So for him to be reviewing movies, I would apply the same thinking to that. Like I wouldn't take anything. You know what I mean? I don't know. It would be like, what can I compare it to? I don't know. It would be like,
well, it's probably the people in his fan base the people in his fan base who are like, "Oh yeah, Ben Shapiro's a genius, man. He's a like super awesome genius."
But I heard his movie sucked though.
Yeah, yeah, I saw that. Didn't you watched Jared's video that was reviewing his movie?
Yeah, I heard it sounded like really boring.
Yeah.
What movie is he in?
He made a
He
movie
did-
apparently.
Oh, he made a movie.
Yeah, like his company, Dave Fire,
Yeah.
produced some slasher horror movie, I think it was.
No, they did a gun movie about school shooting or something like that.
They did?
Run, Hide, Fight or something
okay.
like that. Is Run?
Oh, okay.
I
didn't know that.
I don't know. I didn't see it, but yeah, it'd be like going to like Joe Biden for like sports opinions. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Obviously, this guy would have no idea who's like, you know, in the Western Conference in the NHL. You know what I mean?
Anyway. Yeah, I think about like people build a people get cult followings from like people like Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson and a lot of those like pseudo intellectuals, as I think they are, get these huge cult followings where people get pissed off if you give them even the mildest criticisms, like they can do no wrong.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think everybody has their limits though, right? Like I think like I've seen Shapiro do debates and on things of the political matter, I can agree with him on some things that he said, right? Like he's obviously a smart guy, but to apply that same thinking to cultural things like movies and music, I just think it's way out of bounds. You know what I mean? Like this is
yeah, of course.
He's an Orthodox Jew. This isn't a guy that has his ear to the ground as far as what's hip and you know what I mean culturally.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? Like if you ask him what to name top 40 artists, he would have no fucking. I don't know.
yeah. No, you're right. Exactly.
But I don't know. I could listen. I listen to Jordan Peterson, but same thing. I would listen to Jordan Peterson, and I would be like, if you were to do a book review on Nietzsche or something like that, I would be okay. I'll listen to that. But if you were to do a movie review on fucking Showgirls or something, I don't know if I would like. I could care less.
Do a review of Frozen or something like that.
Did he really?
This is an X.
Yeah, I think he reviewed Frozen.
That's an example of toxic femininity, okay? They're gonna put us all in the bloody gulag.
I know he did Pinocchio because he did a whole series on Pinocchio on YouTube, which was kind of interesting.
Yeah,
but
yeah, some of those are interesting. I like that. That's why I don't totally hate Jordan Peterson, because some of his older stuff that was actually more to do with psychology and applying it to different religious themes and applying them to popular culture, or, you know, just classic movies like Pinocchio was pretty interesting.
Yeah. Again, yeah. I don't know. I'm some days I like Jordan, some days I don't. I don't know. It depends on what he's talking about. It depends on what he's talking about, and it depends on what people are saying about him. I find like, I don't know. I find like I become a Jordan Peterson fan because people hate on him so much, and they're like, "This guy's a fucking idiot." I'm like, "Well, wait a minute. I don't know. It's just like, I don't know." Anyway, roll the clip. I'm rambling.
All right.
Last night I went and I saw The Batman. My review of that is coming up in just one moment. This video is sponsored by Ring.
Don't dare.
And then
I can't further in ads, man. It's like, isn't it like every 5 minutes with the ads with him or something?
Where
something like
I started off and I was like,
I gotta go back to the beginning. There we go.
Saw The Batman. Went and saw it with my wife. It is 1 million hours long, and it's one of those movies where I started off and I was like, okay, and then I got a little further in. I was like, all right, and then I got to the end. I was like, meh. And then the more I thought about it, the angrier I became. And so you're about to hear a lot.
I had to think about ways that it made me angry. And I just lay there in bed getting angrier and angrier about how woke this movie was.
Of hot takes on The Batman, because I hate this movie. Okay, first of all, I'm just going to tell you right up front, spoilers. Spoilers aplenty here. So if you haven't seen the film yet and you want to see the film and you don't want to be spoiled, I'm warning you. You've been warned. All right, this is Detective Batman. So if the original Michael Keaton Batman was sort of crime-fighting Batman and the Christopher Nolan Batman was city-saving Batman, this Batman is supposed to be Detective Batman. And this has a long history in the Batman comics. Some of the best Batman comics, particularly my favorite, The Long Halloween, is rooted in the idea of Batman not just as Caped Crusader, but as a great detective, smarter than everybody else.
Dusty, do you think he actually reads the Batman comic books?
No.
Probably. Like,
you think so?
Probably. Like,
he could have read one for research.
Pleasures.
Yeah.
Well, you mean, did he actually read them when they came out? I think he's probably watched the Batman movies and read some Batman comics, because a lot of the Batman comics, like the good ones, will be released in graphic novel form. You know, it's not like, oh, let me buy 20 issues of Batman here. A lot of the good stories are just like graphic novels.
Yeah, he's probably read a few of those. But as far as like putting this to get this whatever monologue he's doing piece together, like that's all done by a team.
Yeah, somebody wrote it for him.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah.
Say this negative and compare it to here and this blah blah blah. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
there's no way
yeah.
he's. I don't know.
I doubt that he's well versed in the comics, is what I'm saying. That's all.
He's probably not well versed like all of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably read a couple here.
Everybody else
Yeah. That's fair.
capable of picking up on clues, investigating, and tracking down crimes. I'm going to start with what's right with the film because it's going to be real short. So what's right with the film is that it looks great. It is a film noirish take on Gotham City. It almost feels kind of like retro Taxi Driver Gotham City. So everything is very dirty. It's all taking place at night. It's shot in kind of grayscale at times.
Retro Taxi Driver, kind of like how we were talking about the feel of Joker is similar to that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of going in. It seems like that's the path that everyone's going in. Like, let's make it even more grimdark.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they do that with the soundtrack too. Like when they play Nirvana, Something in the Way, when he, you know what I mean? Like it's a dark and dreary acoustic song that goes with
it's emo grunge Batman.
Yeah, suicide and
yeah.
It's got a lot of warm oranges and reds, but against a very dark black. So it's a lot of muttered dialogue. It feels as though it's taking place in the same city as Joker is taking place. So if you saw Joker, Todd Phillips' Joker, which looks like 1970s New York, it feels almost like the other half of that, but it seems more like the take on what future New York would look like if you were living in New York in 1970. That's sort of a good way of putting it. The music to the film is okay. I think that Michael Giacchino tends to be a little bit derivative in how he does the scores to the films. This one, he basically takes the music that Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard wrote for Batman Begins in the Nolan trilogy, which the theme goes da da, and here he just inverts it. So instead of da da, it's da da. Okay, fine. So it's a little bit derivative, but the score is totally fine. The acting is okay, as we'll find out in a second. They give Robert Pattinson nothing to do as Batman. Nothing to do as Batman. I didn't think that Zoe Kravitz had any sort of chemistry with Robert Pattinson.
Does he have nothing to do as Batman? It kind of seems like he's spending the whole movie solving these mysteries from the Riddler and trying to stop his terrorist plot.
Yeah, I think they mean that he just doesn't really have a whole lot of dialogue. There's a lot of like looking and staring at objects and making like comments here and there.
That's true.
But he doesn't really get into like long dialogues with anybody.
That's true. Well, yeah, like he's the more repressed emo Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But he does things, I guess. You know, it's not like he doesn't do anything. He is fighting crime and investigating mysteries and stuff. And then the POV is almost entirely from his perspective.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you get some POVs from Catwoman, but most of it is from him.
Yeah. Yeah, and he still goes around getting into fights and stuff like that, too.
Mm-hmm.
Chasing the Joker and working with the cops, and then trying to find out what happened to his dad, and finding out the truth behind that, too.
Mm-hmm. And finding out how many corrupt cops there are.
Exactly, yeah.
For Pattinson. So she's fine. She's kind of flirty. I didn't see anything particularly wrong with her performance. I just didn't see a lot right with her performance. You have John Turturro showing up as Carmine Falcone, and he is John Turturro, so he's okay. He's somewhat menacing. The best performance in the film is Colin Farrell playing the Penguin. You literally cannot spot Colin Farrell in this makeup. Yeah. There's no way that you can see Colin Farrell here. The whole movie, I'm staring at him going, that's not Colin. It is Colin Farrell. It's the best performance in the movie. Paul Dano gives a good performance in the film, although he's sort of playing the Joker a little bit, although he's playing it more wide-eyed as Paul Dano is apt.
You say something, Chris?
I said that's so funny. That's so true that we couldn't even tell he was Colin Farrell.
Yeah. It's definitely his most. I don't know if it's his best performance in terms of the strength of his performance, but in terms of how much of the physical transformation he went through to become the character, I would say so for sure.
Mhm.
Is apt to do. The main character of the film is the Riddler. And herein lies the main problem with the film. The biggest problem with the film is that the film hates Batman. Like the actual Batman character hates.
Yeah, see, this is where Ben Shapiro gets into how I hate that Batman went in a different direction with the story. He's supposed to be fighting crime. He's supposed to be the good guy.
The Batman character. And this drives me up an absolute wall. The biggest problem with the film is not the wokeness. Yes, there's some woke touches. You have Catwoman, who is a woman of color, who is, of course, good. And you have the black female mayor, who is good. And you have the black Jim Gordan, who is good. Every white character is apparently bad, like all of them.
See, this is where he gets into the wokeness. All the black characters are good and all the white characters are bad, man.
Well, Catwoman's not as kind of gray, you know.
Yeah. She's okay
Yeah,
with
but like-
murdering people, and the white Batman stops her from murdering people.
Yeah, and it's not like this is the first black Catwoman. There's been like 2 others before her.
Mhm.
Yeah, you mentioned that before, too.
Yeah, Halle Berry and Eartha Kitt.
Yeah. Which one is that second one?
Eartha Kitt is from the Adam West Batman.
Mm.
Oh, okay.
She was.
Oh, yeah,
a
so
black Catwoman.
is that the first Catwoman that's not animated?
I know there's really old like Batman from like the 40s, but I have no idea whether or not Catwoman was in those like shorts.
You mean like before Adam West?
Yeah, there was a Batman before Adam West in black and white, and the Batmobile
okay.
was literally like some regular looking car from like 1940.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Fine, whatever. I don't really care about that. That's fine. You have Catwoman say stuff about white privileged elites, and she makes a suggestion that Bruce Wayne is a child when his parents were killed. He doesn't really have a right to be super upset about that because, of course, he was very, very rich. That doesn't kind of rings hollow. A lot of these lines seem like throwaways for.
Of course, that rings hollow to him. Like she's making
Because he grew up rich. It's because it's an attack on him.
Yeah,
Because
and the Riddler makes that as a valid point later on to as a way to point out Batman's hypocrisy. That yes, he was an orphan, but he didn't grow up in an orphanage under terrible fucking conditions, under the nightmarish conditions in the Gotham orphans, rats nibbling on your toes and shit like that, and for one child a year freezing to death because they didn't have enough heat. He still grew up in luxury, even though it's not good for anyone to lose their parents.
Yeah, and I think Catwoman is basically making that same point.
Yeah.
Which is kind of it's basically the theme of the movie.
Yeah, basically. Like, what you're depressed and you can never get it, and you can never get over your parents' death, and you want revenge for it, and you think you deserve all this vengeance for it, but you're actually more privileged than a lot of people that have worse circumstances than you, who have had the same bad things happen to them as you.
Right.
Yeah. But are you there, Chris? What do you think about that aspect of it that Ben Shapiro's talking about? We mentioned that a little bit before.
Yeah, it's tough. What is it?
This is making a class statement. I think the movie does make a class statement, and I think
I'm trying to think
Shapiro
of
is a classist, so he wouldn't
So
like that.
yeah, and he thinks like saying rich people bad is equivalent to wokeness.
Well, the thing about Ben Shapiro is he makes fun of people by calling them poor.
Mm-hmm.
He's definitely a classist.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Remember when Brian Callen said it's easy to complain about the outside world from within air-conditioned houses or cars or something? It's that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he said something about how his father pointed out that to him because, like, when they at one point when he was a kid, when they were traveling in the world and they would go to so-called third world countries and be surrounded by poverty all around them, driving down a street in an air-conditioned car, complaining about stuff.
Yeah, that's why Americans need to travel.
Yeah.
Just to see how bad it can get.
Yeah, definitely.
But the same probably applies for Ben. Like, I'm sure.
Yeah, but
I'm
he's rich enough that he's probably taking vacations. But I don't know if he like actually goes to like the poorer spots in town. Like I'm pretty sure he's been in the Caribbean. Like, but he probably just stays on the resort where it's safe and nice, you know.
Yeah, if I don't see him going to poor places at all. Like,
Yeah.
wouldn't like, I don't know. When people want to like, isn't he on the most wanted? I don't know. Like, it doesn't he has a personal security team that follows him around, I'm sure.
Yeah. Excuse me, front desk. I would like to complain because my bellhop is black, and the person who brought me my meal was also black. There are just too many black people around here, okay?
It's a pretty good Shapiro you have there.
I just hired Candace Owens, who is black.
Yes, that means I'm a good person, okay?
Film lefty Twitter, but the main theme is not a throwaway. The main theme is what matters here. The film despises Batman. So every Batman iteration has to explain why a man who is a billionaire would dress up like a bat and go around beating up criminals. It's not answered. And the director doesn't know. And the writer doesn't know. And this is the problem. So in the Nolan films, to take the contrast, the question as to why Batman does this is because
the director doesn't know. No, the director knows. He just doesn't like what the director is saying. He doesn't like that the film doesn't like Batman and is pointing out Batman's hypocrisy and that he's more privileged than than the people who end up being the villains, like the Riddler, who have the same motivation of vengeance, right?
Yeah, it's a very gray area movie. That's for sure.
And he
like,
doesn't.
Batman isn't like pointed out as, it's like in most of the movies, like Batman, I wouldn't say has an immaculate presentation, because in a lot of movies, he may be feared by like the normal populace, but in the end, he becomes like the savior of like a recognized savior of the city. And they're actually doing this kind of early on in this franchise, like considering like the end of the movie and how it ends. So I don't know why they're saying they hate Batman, but he, like, in the end, he's like trying to save people rather than just like fighting bad guys.
Yeah, I think it seems like he thinks that the film hates Batman because, Batman's way of seeking vengeance through violence and beating up criminals to try to solve crime is not the solution, and he decides that they should have hope instead because that's like more of a liberal solution than a conservative solution to solving crime.
Is that what he thinks?
It seems that way. I mean, it seems like that's why he would think that. He gets into that a little bit more specifically, I think, actually.
Because if Batman does not actually intimidate the criminal underworld because the city is so corrupt, no one else will do it, and money isn't going to solve the problem. And so he needs to create a theatrical...
If Batman doesn't do it, no one will, so he has to do it.
kind of fear in order to dissuade the criminal underworld from participating. And then, as it turns out, he also has to save the city itself and demonstrate his faith in the city by becoming a symbol. Here, you don't really know why Batman is doing what he's doing. It's never explained. He's very wealthy. He doesn't...
That's the point. He's not a symbol. He's trying to solve crime with violence instead of becoming a symbol of inspiration to the people and becoming a symbol of hope, so that people can like work harder to change the city themselves, which is why part of why he's helping Gordan protect that politician towards the end of the movie, because she seems like the only politician in all of Gotham City who's not corrupt.
At least yet.
Yet. She very well could end up corrupt for sure.
They all do.
Yeah.
Doesn't apparently do anything with his wealth. He doesn't try to give charity. He doesn't. I mean, this actually made a plot point. He's a bad man because he's white. He's a bad white man who doesn't actually give charity. He's not involved. And
wait, when did they? Oh yeah. They say something. Is it Catwoman who says something?
No,
she says that one
mayor.
woke line.
No, what happens is the mayor kind of approaches Batman when he's Bruce Wayne, and like, hey, I see that you're not really helping out with those millions that you have.
Right.
They're just kind of implying that he's not actively participating in philanthropy. We can already see that this film, that he's going to transition into like a philanthropist in the next film. So I think that whatever Shapiro's talking about is kind of BS, because they kind of show at the end that he becomes some more, at least he changes his tone. And I assume that if they are going to follow through with another movie, that we're going to see philanthropist Bruce Wayne instead of emo hermit Bruce Wayne.
So was there a point when someone said, "You suck, Bruce Wayne, you privileged white person, you"? Does anyone criticize him for being white? I don't remember that.
No, I don't remember that.
Do you remember that happening at any point, Chris?
No, not for his skin color. I mean, I think there's a different tone towards how Gotham people react to him, Bruce Wayne, versus the other movies. But again, that could be where they're going with this particular type of character, a darker one. And I don't see the criticism being that he's white. It's more that he's rich. Yeah, which I mean, like,
he's not playing.
Is that like a dig at capitalism? Who knows? I mean, that's not what I really got from, you know what I mean? I didn't really get that the movie was like against billionaires or whatever.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Like not necessarily a critique of capitalism necessarily, but financial corruption to the point where you're just this like cronyism, as some people call it, where you're just ruthlessly pursuing profit in a corrupt way. And some lefties would say that that's inherent to capitalism, but it depends on your opinion about a variety of definitions and whatnot. But I would say it's more the financial corruption aspect. Where
I think that's where people would have the issue with, in not just the movie but in society in general, is that the corruption aspect of it. Whereas Shapiro is saying that he would be saying that people on the left have issue with capitalism in general and billionaires in general, like an Elon Musk, right? Just because they're not like, taking their wealth and becoming like a communist with it and giving it to everybody, and spreading it equally, and furthering the planet, and you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Which I didn't really. I thought that was one of the better things about this movie, is that it didn't stand out to me as being a woke kind of movie. It was
and there definitely are some out there, but this doesn't seem like it is one at all.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, this was not female Ghostbusters by any stretch of the imagination. This was like I don't know. It was dark. It was like, I just felt like it was like, how can I put it? I want to say like not a Marilyn Manson version of Batman, but it was like it was just a darker version. And that's one of the things I liked about it, is that they kind of stayed away from the woke. And I think Hollywood's finally I hope they're finally catching on to this kind of, if you're going to put kind of these woke undertones in movies, it's going to, your audience, some portion of your audience is going to react negatively to that,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, there's, I don't know.
Joe Rogan liked the movie.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan liked the movie?
Yeah, I think he said this was his favorite one. He liked it better than
really?
Nolan, Batman.
Cool. I can
I wouldn't
see
say it was my favorite, but it was better than what I was expected.
Yeah, I like the Dark Knight trilogy, the Christian Nolan's one, the most. But yeah, like we were talking about, I like the different approach of this and the film noir Batman, and how they turn his philosophy on its head and show his hypocrisy, and they take down his dad as having been this noble figure before, and figure out that he was almost as corrupt as the criminals that he was supposedly trying to fight through his own philanthropy.
Mm-hmm.
And getting involved in politics, of course.
Yeah, because I know Christian Bale was like he kind of leaned into the whole rich bachelor, playboy lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With
They
lots
talked
of money, and he had a lot of gadgets, his tank, Batmobile.
Including was like that too, if I'm not mistaken. Didn't he have like flashy watches and nice suits and that kind of shit?
Yeah, it's almost.
I don't remember.
Yeah. Which one?
The George Clooney one?
Mm-hmm.
They probably played that stuff up. It's been a long time since I've watched that version, because it's like the worst Batman, basically.
Yeah,
I can remember even the one with Michael Keaton. I remember he was like, he had like, it was like a nice turtleneck on, and then he went to put on his Bruce Wayne glasses, and they were like gold, really expensive glasses. You know what I mean? Like there was a certain flashiness to the Bruce Wayne back in the early, or in the 90s, early 2000 Batmans.
Right.
This is like gritty, depressed Batman.
Gritty, like thin tie, kind of like.
Yeah.
Circle bags under his eyes, Batman.
Yeah. I'll go, I guess. I'm just gonna kind of mope around. Don't talk to me, man. Jeez. Leave me alone.
People used to love this. Well, I don't know if they still did, but when he was in the Twilight series with what's her name?
Kristen Stewart.
Thank you. Horrible with names tonight. I don't know what the fuck's wrong with me. But anyway, when that whole series was going on, I can remember girls loving the shit out of him and thinking like he was the hottest thing since sliced bread, right?
Yeah.
I don't like. I don't know. He didn't look good. I don't know.
Well, I think it was intentional. Like they weren't trying to make him look good. Particularly.
Yeah,
I know. But wouldn't you want to kind of make him look somewhat sexy if you're trying to attract a female audience to a big blockbuster movie like that?
Well, I think they're trying to play up the story. Like it's not really
like the dark
obviously
Batman.
He's obviously like depressed.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's not showing up to board meetings. He wants nothing to do with his company. He's moping around. You don't really see him have like cordial conversations with anybody at all.
No, and neither was he. Wasn't that kind of way in the Twilight character either. I mean, he was a vampire. He was somebody that was evil, but yet there was
I have no idea. I have never seen Twilight.
Neither did I, but I know he was a vampire in that, and I know that people found.
Tenet's way better. Tenet's about a million times better than Twilight.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but there was a.
He's in it, and he plays like this charismatic, like spy dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's another one I want to see, but I haven't seen yet. Is that
You
That's
have to
really
you have to
good.
be you have to be super baked and watch it at least twice to understand what the fuck is going on.
Yeah, you gotta watch it more than once. It's
is it like a memento or something?
Yeah.
They play with time in a weird way.
Yeah.
Like you're not watching the movie backwards. Well, I can't say that really. You'd have to watch the movie to
Yeah.
see what's going on with that.
It's extremely complex in terms of how they address the issue of time travel.
Great.
Well, it's not even time
From my list
travel.
of-
It's like weird.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
guess it's time travel, but it's not at all conventional at all. Like
No.
it's weird.
Yeah, definitely. Not at all. All right, continue this clip here.
Not playing that as a role. Again, this is part of the problem, is that Bruce Wayne and Batman are the same character. So if you, I keep using the Nolan comparison because it is the gold standard for all superhero movies, not just Batman movies. So when you look at Nolan's Batman, Bruce Wayne is the character that Batman is playing. Okay, Bruce Wayne is not real. Batman is real. Batman is who Bruce Wayne really is. And so he has to play a
I
father.
disagree.
In Batman Begins, he's squiring around ladies in his Lamborghini, and he's buying hotels, and he's doing all of
You think so?
No, I think like Bruce Wayne is
I think
not
he's-
like a character. I think it's like with anybody. Everybody has like a social version of themselves and like a private version of themselves. Like when you're at a social gathering, you don't act the same way as you are, with yourself. You know what I mean?
I think
No,
they
I
did,
kinda,
like they
I kinda
do.
agree with Shapiro here because he's saying that this kind of Batman in the Nolan series, like that Christian Bale is playing, he's more of like a male, like not pimp but a hustler, and he's more of like a ladies' man and like flashy and shows up in Lamborghini versus like, so that's a different character that's different than the Robert Pattinson character, right? Who is essentially Pattinson, sorry, who's essentially
what Shapiro
similar
is
to
trying to
the.
say though is that Batman, the persona, is the real persona, and Bruce Wayne is a fake persona.
I think he's right about that too, though. Actually, that they kind of established that in both the Christian Bale Batman movies and in this Batman movies, like multiple characters mention it, how he truly wants to, who he really is Batman, and he wants to just be Batman all the time. He hates going out and having to be his real self as Christian Bale, because his true self is all dark and grim and brooding and depressed and angry and wanting vengeance and that sort of thing. And like he's just pretending when he's doing the Playboy Bruce Wayne thing, and he's doing that less as the emo Batman in
That's right.
in this.
Well, he's
the
not
Batman
doing it
movie.
at all. He's
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, because he's not. This is like an earlier version of Batman. Like the Batman from the Dark Knight series is like a Batman that's later on in the evolution of Batman's history. Like they're trying to say that, okay, there's going to be an evolution here. That's kind of what this movie is saying, that there's an evolution. If this series continues, we're going to see like an evolution to Batman's actual, character. In the Dark Knight, from start to finish, the character is basically the same. There's not really an evolution of the character. It's just we get the same character for all three films, and this one it seems like, okay, some shit happened to Batman in the first movie, and then we're gonna have a slightly different Batman for the second movie. Like it seems to be that they are focusing on Batman's character development specifically, as opposed to the other movies, which are very plot focused. This movie is very character focused. So it does show like they're trying to do some type of character development with Batman himself instead of him just being this force in the plot to move the plot along.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what people want nowadays. They want like character driven narratives.
Yeah, exactly. So why were you saying you think that Ben Shapiro's wrong about that then? About Batman and Bruce Wayne? Like
I guess
about
he's
Bruce
right.
Wayne really wanting to just be Batman.
Well, I guess he's right there. I just think that the Bruce Wayne that's presented to the world, yeah, I guess that's right. That's kind of like a fake version, or not his. But I think that's just how everybody is, especially people who live in Hollywood. You know what I mean? Or people who have high profiles. I think most of high profile people publicly act a different way than they do privately. I know there's probably a few people that don't. I know a lot of people say that Rogan is like the same, like in the public, than he is behind closed doors. But there are for sure, like just thinking about like the Amber Heard case, like we saw that there were public personas of these people. And then like when their dirty laundry gets aired, we see that, yeah, these people had some really, really crazy problems and were very different from, the public perception of what they portrayed, like in the public eye.
Yeah, for sure. That can happen with anyone too. And people are good at pretending to be different from the way that they are. And well, it's not, depending on the person, but at the same time too,
in the universe of superheroes and Spider-Man and Batman and all that kind of stuff, usually they're the polar opposites though. Like if you look at Spider-Man, right? Peter Parker's a nerd, and then Spider-Man's a fucking crazy guy that can leap all over the place. And then in Batman, he's a rich guy during the day, and he's like, super outgoing and at dinner parties and that kind of stuff. And at night, he's out fighting crime and that kind of stuff. Superman is Clark Kent. He's a nerd. He works at the newspaper with glasses. And then the complete opposite is like he can fly, and you know what I mean? They're always like it's always comparative as the polar opposites here. And what I got out of what Ben was saying there is that the character development, the character dichotomy between him being Bruce Wayne and Batman is very, they're like, you know what I mean? You could not get away with pulling the Clark Kent and Superman. Not that you could anyway. Like it's just fucking glasses for Christ's sakes, right? But like you could tell the difference between the two Batman. Like there's not like why even go out as Bruce Wayne at this point? You know what I mean? I feel like you could just come out, like take off the mask and you're just Batman. If you're going to be that dreary and I don't know, emo, like I don't know, not the same, but they're very similar. That's what I think Ben is getting at, comparing that to the other Batmans before, where there was like such a difference.
I think that's related to how Dusty was talking about how they're focusing on character development with this Batman, and maybe with the sequels in this series, he'll decide to develop that kind of like playboy persona as part of camouflage for him being Batman, to go in a different direction as part of his also mission to be more philanthropic. And I guess they just decided to not have him be emo Batman at all in the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
No, remember Spider-Man went from regular Spider-Man to emo Spider-Man.
That's true. That was the worst Venom in Spider-Man 3. Made him emo Spider-Man, and he would dance and stuff like that.
When did he
so I think we're gonna get a reversal, at least for Bruce Wayne. I think in the next movie we're gonna see him like more visible to the public.
Yeah, that's it. That could definitely happen. All right.
He's going to be a trans Batman next film.
Trans Batman, yeah.
You mean he identifies as a bat?
My gender pronouns are squeak.
They're going to get rid of the man. It's just going to be the bat the next.
Oh, yeah, the bat.
Yeah, he's going to announce himself as Chiropteran Kin.
All of this just to cover up for the fact that he is Batman. So you get very separate Batman and Bruce Wayne. You get the same thing actually with Michael Keaton. Batman and Bruce Wayne are two different characters. Here, Batman and Bruce Wayne are the exact same character. There are points where Bruce Wayne is walking around. He's got the same dour expression, same glazed look, same kind of emo thing going on as Batman does the entire movie. And so there's no dichotomy. Alrighty, folks. Well, I may not have loved the Batman, but here's the thing. Real Batman knows how to protect himself and protect his monitoring for less money than most professional alarm home security kit today.
Don't care.
Citywide corruption that apparently is going to bring down the entire superstructure of faith in the city. Meanwhile, you have Catwoman, who's Selena Kyle, played by Zoe Kravitz. And Zoe Kravitz is similarly engaged in an attempt to commit a robbery against one of these underworld figures, but she's drawn into Batman's orbit by a murder that both of them are investigating at the same time, the murder of her roommate, maybe something more going on there. The Riddler is the main villain of the movie. You see the Penguin a fair bit. Carmine Falcone is one of the big characters in the movie. You get a little bit of Alfred. Of course, you get Jim Gordon, whose main job in this film is apparently just to say Jesus over and over again.
Christ, it's Coulson.
Whenever something bad happens, he just goes, Jesus. And that happens like 6 times. Like Jim Gordon does nothing except for basically stop Batman from getting arrested.
I think he does a lot more than that. It kind of seems like he helps Batman solve some of the mysteries and allows him access and helps him escape from the cops when they get pissed off at him and various other ways that he helps Batman.
Yeah, this Gordan is the same guy from Westworld, if you've seen that.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, I thought the relationship between this Gordan and this Batman was fine. I didn't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
Getting arrested a lot. That's pretty much all he does. He's a bad detective. He doesn't do anything. The plot is that all these people get killed. Batman uncovers it. He realizes that his dad was corrupt also, or that his dad engaged in corruption with Carmine Falcone. Finally, we get to the end. Paul Dano does it's such a ripoff of Seven. He gives himself up. He doesn't get captured by Batman. Batman does not prevent a single one of these deaths. Batman, in fact, is complicit in one of the deaths by accident. And he doesn't actually capture the Riddler because he's clever. The Riddler gives himself up by sitting at a diner and getting arrested. Then he unleashes a bombing of Gotham that essentially causes the flooding of the city. And Batman goes to the Madison Square Garden, where a mayoral event is now being held for the brand new mayor, who is an uplifting black female who has no other story or backstory, so she's really uninteresting. It starts to flood. And up on top, in the wings, are a bunch of Paul Dano's followers.
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe he meant that's meant to be... Oh, yeah, someone... I think in Vaush in Vaush's video that he did analyzing Ben Shapiro's review, he pointed that out and he said, Gotham isn't meant to be New York City. It's meant to be Chicago, isn't it?
Yes, Chicago.
Yeah. You see, it's like New York City, though.
Are a bunch of the Riddler's followers who are all dressed like the Riddler, and they are shooting down into the crowd to try and kill members of the elite in Gotham City.
Yeah,
and so Batman goes up there and he's beating people up. There comes a point where he's beating this guy and he's really like maybe beating him almost to death. And he stops and they take off that guy's mask and they say, "Who are you?" And the guy says, "I am vengeance." Okay, now this is the theme throughout the film. Ooh, the theme. Okay, so in order to explain why this is a problem, you have to now understand the character of the Riddler. So it says right at the beginning of the movie, "Who is Batman? I'm vengeance." Right? He's just on the streets and he's beating people up.
I'm vengeance.
And then people keep calling him Mr. Vengeance for no apparent reason. Like we don't know why they're calling him that, because he never actually publicly says he's vengeance. It's in his creepy diary, which again is supposed to be a mirror image of the fact that the Riddler also keeps a Zodiac killer style diary. So they're supposed to be two halves of the same whole. Batman is beating up this follower of the Riddler's. He takes off his mask and the guy says, "I'm vengeance." And suddenly Batman sees. Suddenly Batman realizes he can't be vengeance. That's not what he's meant to do. He's betrayed his mission. And so he then descends on an electrified cable because he's trying to stop people from being electrocuted by this flying electrical wire. And he cuts off the cable. He's holding on to it. He falls down into the water a rebaptism. He gets up, and then he proceeds to lead a bunch of people who are not really trapped, but kind of trapped, I suppose. And he leads them to, I guess, a safer place by carrying a torch. And then he goes up to the top of Madison Square Garden, and he is helping people be airlifted and medevaced out. And this is how he has learned fulfillment. So what is this movie about? This movie is about how fighting criminality does not actually help innocent people. He says this at the very beginning. He says, I'm not sure I'm doing any good. By fighting the criminals, crime is still up. It turns out that Batman has to stop being Batman. Batman has been missing it the whole time. What Batman really has to be is Superman. Batman needs to go into areas like Madison Square Garden and not fight the criminals. He needs to go and lead people with a torch to a slightly safer area. He needs to help medevac people on the top of it. He needs to build Habitat for Humanity. He needs to join Jimmy Carter and build houses for homeless people.
Doesn't that kind of sound like a more effective idea? More effective solution, perhaps?
No, he needs to stop the Riddler from flooding the city. That's what he needs to do.
That's what Batman needs to be doing. This really is a sort of attack on the idea that fighting crime helps innocent people. It's an almost defund the police attitude toward what crime is. And it's an attack.
I was waiting for that. It's almost the defund the police attitude, okay?
It's the attitude that fighting crime only fights crime, but doesn't take care of the reason why the crime happens in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. If you solve for the roots of crime instead of locking up criminals when they do crimes, because there's still individual responsibility, of course, but people have no other economic opportunities in that area, then they're a hell of a lot more likely to get involved in crime. So that's why some people say that this is a left-wing Batman, which is why Ben Shapiro doesn't like it, because it's saying punching criminals in the face doesn't stop criminals from committing crimes.
On the basic idea that individuals are capable of doing justice by finding bad guys and fighting them. Instead, apparently, individuals are only capable of doing nice things by helping little old ladies cross the street. It's this sort of mentality that has led to New York turning into Gotham City in the last couple of years. It's a fundamental betrayal of what Batman is. What makes Batman different from the Riddler and than any of these other criminals is these criminals target innocent people and Batman targets criminals. That's the basis of the character.
The Riddler also targeted criminals. So I'm not...
Batman's
I'm not sure.
attitude is why New York City's gotten to shit the last couple of years. Basically, this is the defund police Batman, okay? Do you guys think it's the defund police Batman?
No. That's...
With Commissioner Gordan being like the main character?
No, not at all. It's, hey, look at all this corruption, Batman. That's what I'm saying mostly.
Yeah. I just think that's hilarious. It's basically defund the police.
The entire basis of the character is the cops are bad at targeting criminals because they're corrupt. Batman is good at targeting criminals because he's smart and because he's rich and because he's incorruptible. That's the entire basis of Batman. And they take all that and they flip it on its head because they don't like Batman. And this is why I have real problems with the movie. I kind of hate the movie. Like, the more I think about it, the more I get angry at it. Because they take the fundamental idea of what Batman is supposed to.
That's because they flip it on its head because they show that Batman, in fact, is corruptible like everyone else. He is not incorruptible. His reason for vengeance is not any better than anyone else's reason for vengeance. And vengeance is not how you solve the crime of why there are criminals who end up being the ones who do things like kill your parents in the first place, right?
I think they just basically, because it's his motives. Batman's basically going to continue to do the same shit. It's just his motive isn't going to be vengeance. Because I don't remember vengeance being like a real big theme in the previous movies. Like, yeah, his parents were killed, but it's not like, oh, I'm doing this for my mom and dad.
Yeah, and the Joker with Michael Keaton, there was vengeance because he wanted to
Well, because the Joker directly like referenced killing his parents. Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, you're right. Other
Oh.
than that, you fast forward 20. It was It was more about saving Gotham City for the past 20 years. You know what I mean? Or defeating the villain than it was about revenge for something.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that seems more common in Batman stories in general, I would say. Yeah, that's a good point.
I think a lot of the Batman origin stories do revolve around vengeance. Like you're saying, 89 Batman, where Joker is the one who actually killed his parents. And in this one, while they don't kind of focus on who or did the parent killing, there's still a vengeance theme. But in a lot of the Batmans that are outside of the origin stories, like the Nolan Batmans, there's not a whole lot of vengeance going on, to be honest.
That's true.
True.
He's already like fully established Batman at that point. And he's like, I would guess peak Batman, where he's kind of like the ideal version of Batman before he's gone through his struggles. But it's interesting seeing some character development. Let's see what happens to this guy. See if he does turn into eventually like the cavalier and suave Bruce Wayne that we know from other films.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
I'm not really familiar with, because I know there's a lot of origin story comics, but I'm not like familiar with if they had like the same types of character development for Bruce Wayne. Like I know there's a series called Year One, which is like his first year as Batman. My guess is there's probably some influence from that, but I would have to check it out for myself.
Okay. Yeah, I don't really know much about the comics.
Security, how can I help you?
Mute yourself, Dusty. Dusty, mute yourself. There you go. Okay, we'll continue this clip.
Supposed to be a protector of the innocent who targets the criminal. And they say that if he targets the criminal, this makes him no different than criminals. Because Paul Dano, who's the Riddler, is also targeting criminals. All the way up until the very end, when they have to just sort of add on this attack on Madison Square Garden and New York Broad Writ for no reason. He has no motivation for blowing up a bunch of trucks and flooding downtown. Like, none. He doesn't explain why he does it. He doesn't explain.
I think he just, like, in his explanation, he kind of just explains how his rage has gone crazy and his desire for vengeance has gone crazy, which it does. I mean, like you were saying, Dusty,
totally
yeah.
I don't think a lot of villains, like, I don't remember the Riddler explaining his whole backstory when he was in the original Batman. These guys just usually showed up and formed a team of villains to face off against Batman.
Yeah, exactly.
What the purpose of it is? All the way along, he's been saying, I'm exposing the true face of Gotham. Okay, that's a rationale. But what does that have to do with blowing up the city? They add that on just so that they can create a false distinction between Batman and the Riddler so that Batman can change his mission. So now Batman's mission is not beating up bad guys and stopping.
No, the point is that they both are motivated by violence, and that violence doesn't solve problems.
Bad guys. Now Batman's mission is to be a firefighter. He's no longer a detective or a police officer. He's a firefighter.
Yeah.
That's a betrayal. And it's a real problem.
That is less
that's my biggest
interesting
issue with the film.
I will say Detective Batman wasn't that
It just
good of
feels
a
like such a
detective.
sellout. It feels like such a sellout.
That's true.
You
He
know what I
wasn't
mean?
that great of a detective.
No, like, I was expecting, like, I don't know. Not Sherlock Holmes, maybe, but he could have stepped it up a bit more, I think.
He was decent. He was decent at figuring out the Riddler's riddles, but
Yeah,
he
but then
seemed to
the
need help
whole
with all of them.
lower half of the city was flooded, so what good did you do?
Yeah, he didn't actually stop the Riddler.
Mm-hmm. So, way to go.
Yeah, exactly. That's why this one's so different too. Batman fails to stop the villain.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's another thing where I like that it goes in a different direction. I still prefer the Dark Knight trilogy with the way they've gone with that, but the different. I think it's always interesting when the bad guy wins. Those are some of my favorite movies when the bad guy wins.
Mm-hmm.
So would
And,
you
I mean,
consider
you
this the
have to
bad guy
kind of-
win?
Yeah, the bad guy does win because, like Chris was saying, Batman doesn't stop the Riddler from breaking the dams for Gotham and flooding half the city, right? Or the
Well, I
lower
think
half of the
everybody
city.
that he intended to kill, except Bruce Wayne, was killed.
Yeah,
That's true. Yeah,
setting up more of, like, what could possibly take place in number 2. But yeah, you're
Well,
right. You
Bruce
want
Wayne
this
and the new
Batman
mayor.
to.
The new mayor survived.
yeah. I hope they don't, like we were talking about with the end credit sequence. I hope they don't make it all about the Joker, so we can see, like you were talking about, the 6th Joker within the past 6 years or so.
Yeah, maybe not in this one, but in the third one of the trilogy, they will. But yeah, they have to switch it up and make it different, because if they followed the exact same plot line as the other Batmans, then it would just be a remake, right? It wouldn't be, its own kind of.
Yeah, it wouldn't be its own different thing.
Well, I expect
Out of what Batman
the
is
next
supposed to
movie
be.
might be
Again,
a Joker.
Who
Yeah.
does?
I'm expecting the next movie to be Joker.
Yeah. I mean,
Who
that
plays-
wouldn't surprise me with him being in the end credit sequence, but I hope they don't do that.
They could go right to Colin Farrell, Penguin, for that one, and then save the Joker for the third one, if they make
Yeah.
it to a third one. I imagine nowadays they take a look at the numbers to see if they,
I think this one did pretty well, though. So I think.
Yeah, I think it
like,
did. I think it did, and it was like I said, it was decent enough as a Batman movie to carry on. Although, like, fuck, it was 3 hours. They could have made part 1 and part 2 out of it or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I
Anyway.
think that's a good thing, though, about it. It kind of seems like that's a good thing about there being so many goddamn superhero movies now, that you can make shitty ones, or even big studios are apparently okay with letting directors do something different and go in a totally different direction with a character to show people something new, because everyone's seen the same Batman story a million times.
Yeah, but the market is flooded, though. For me, like, as soon as I even, like, I don't know, like, I wanted to see this Batman, right? But it took me a while to watch this Batman. I had to talk myself into it. Yeah, I got to do it for this podcast. Yeah, yada yada yada. There wasn't really anything attracting it to me, but with any of these superhero movies, I'm always like, fuck, there's so many of these right now. Do I really want to watch this? And as soon as I heard it was 3 hours, it's like, you know what I mean? Not to say I don't like watching these movies, but at the same time, I just feel like all the blockbusters these days are all superhero movies, right? All of the big names, all the big contracts, all the big money, all the big money that studios put into are all superhero movies. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but at the same time, it just gets, I don't know, they saturate the market, and they overplay their hand a lot of the times, and they kill it. You know what I mean? Like, they just beat the dead horse as dead as possible. And I don't know, sometimes I feel like they could just lay off the gas, come out, like, do like a Back to the Future, put out 3 movies, and then just walk away and say, okay, we're not doing this ever again. We're not making a Back to the Future 4, 5, and 6. We're not remaking it again. We're not, you know what I mean? There's not going to be 12 Back to the Future movies and 7 different Marty McFlys. You know what I mean? Like,
I was wondering if, because they could keep on making new Batman movies with new actors. I was wondering if, because of that, they would have the balls to just make this be a one-off Batman, movie, and I wonder if they were going to make him die at the end or something like that, or make him decide to stop being Batman. And I almost thought that was possible until the end credit sequence with the Joker, and then I'm like, of course, they just had to set it up for a sequel, of course.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. The Spider-Man's another one for me. When they first came out in the late 90s, early 2000s with Tobey Maguire, these are movies that I was like, I can remember lining up in theaters to go see, grab my popcorn. Like, I was pumped to see every one of these as they came out. I think like now, like 20 years later, though, I haven't seen every Spider-Man. There's probably one I've missed along the way. I can't remember which one it is.
I haven't
like,
seen whatever the newest one. I haven't seen the newest one.
Yeah,
I
maybe
haven't
it's the
seen the
newest
one
one.
with Jamie Foxx and watched that one.
Yeah,
Oh,
but it got to a point where
it
got to a point where there's so many of them that I was just like, all right, I don't really care to, you know what I mean? Like they overkilled Hollywood killed the market with the amount of, and TV shows too, man. Like,
was there another Tom Holland Spider-Man, like, besides the one they did with the Vulture?
Yeah, this is the newest one is the third one. There's Spider-Man Homecoming, Far From Home, and No Way Home.
Oh, I've only seen one of those.
Oh yeah, Into the Spider-Verse. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you say, Dusty?
I think I've only seen one of the Tom Holland Spider-Mans. And then you got the Spider-Verse. And the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man didn't last very long.
Yeah, he had two of them. I guess he's done the least. Apparently, in the new Spider-Man movie, they have all the Spider-Mans,
including the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man.
Yeah,
and the Tom Holland.
Because it's something about how it's something about how I've only seen the trailer for the movie and people talking about the movie before it came out because I'm trying to avoid spoilers. But it seems obviously like just from that bare little that I know. Yeah, because even in the trailer, Peter Parker gets Doctor Strange to make everyone forget that he's Spider-Man. And then because of unforeseen consequences, it opens up the other Spider-Man universes, which they bring into the Marvel MCU now, so that they can have all the Spider-Mans and make all of the money and hire all of the actors. So, and that's like something to do with the multiverse that Doctor Strange opened up as a consequence of him making everyone forget that Peter Parker is
that
Spider-Man.
Related to the new Doctor Strange movie?
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me.
Multiverse.
Yeah, it's called the Multiverse of Madness, right? I haven't even seen the trailer for it, but it wouldn't surprise me if they're tying it in.
Super behind on Marvel movies, man.
Yeah, there's too many. Same with Bond. They got to put a stop to though.
I just still haven't. You guys you haven't seen the new Bond movie, then, have you?
No.
There's a new Bond movie.
The newest one, No Time to Die, with Daniel Craig.
Hold your breath for 10 seconds. There'll be another one.
I thought he retired as Bond.
That's his last one.
I thought his last one was Skyfall.
No, there's. I mean, no spoilers, but it's impossible for there to be another Daniel Craig Bond movie unless it's a prequel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I wonder if with this new Bond, I mean, that's super obvious. Right? That's super obvious, right? But yeah, I wonder if with this new Bond movie, it's going to be just the depth of the James Bond character, especially because in this last James Bond movie, No Time to Die, he retired at the end of the last one. So in this one, they have a black woman replace him as 007. So I wonder if they're just going to start. One? Yeah, I wonder if the next 007 is just going to be a black woman.
Nice. Jane Bond?
Yeah, something like that.
Can she be like trans and black and cripple?
Well, trans.
Yeah, see, that's they don't have all of the brownie
trans
points.
Gonna seduce somebody though.
That's true. Yeah.
Or maybe she could be non-gender. and
You mean non-binary or
non-binary, non-gender binary. She could be fluid and just whatever she feels like that day.
And everyone will accept her advances because we can't have a transphobic movie.
Well, you can have all of the seduction is seducing enemies, so of course you can have like transphobic enemies.
No, even the villains are not allowed to be transphobic, though.
Oh, that's dumb.
Instead of driving
they were gonna.
fancy,
I thought they were supposed to make
Tesla.
Elba the new Bond or something like that.
That would be cool. I wouldn't mind that.
That would be cool. Just wait it out you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
come out next year. Like, I just think they need to take a 5-year break. That's all I'm asking for.
Do conservatives consider Sonic 2 to be woke?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I haven't seen it.
And what could you be against there? Is Sonic pushing for gay rights or something?
No, his parents are a mixed race couple.
Oh no.
Or his foster Earth parents, I guess you'd call them.
Oh, okay.
Or a mixed race couple?
Yeah.
I didn't even know Sonic had parents.
Well, they're not his real parents. They're just like his guardians on Earth.
Oh, okay.
Because Sonic is not an adult. His character has always been a teenager.
Okay.
So he needs guidance, I guess, and his parents are a mixed race couple, an interracial couple.
It wouldn't surprise me if people have complained about that then. And conservatives have called it woke and whatnot.
No, but it is sad. Don't you think it's sad that we're I watch movies now, and even though I'm watching a movie, there's one sliver of my brain that pays attention to the whole entire plot to look for any kind of woke shit.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Know what I mean?
I get that too. There is. That's the trouble with it too, because there's so much paranoia about wokeness from conservatives, but also it is still true that it's hard to do.
But it takes away
in a movie, if they do change the gender or the race of a character from what it was before, it's really difficult to know for sure why they did that unless they say explicitly. Sometimes it can be super obvious, like we've talked about some super woke movies and some examples like this one and other movies that are not woke at all but have been accused of being woke. But every time I see that sort of thing, I'm always conscious of it, like, oh shit, what are people going to say about this now? And I always think too, man, I hope this is just this is going to be a useful character, and it's not going to be just some fucking black person or woman that they're using as a pawn to add to virtue signal or something like that.
Yeah, although it's so obvious, my brain always goes to, oh, I know why they did that. Oh, I know why they did that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Han Solo comes out and he's black now. Okay, I know why they did that. You know,
Han Solo's black now.
I don't know. I'm just making something up.
But they already have Black Han Solo. It's Lando.
Yeah, basically, Lando is Black Han Solo.
But in if the next one then or Han Solo was female,
I don't think they would ever mess with the Star Wars franchise like that.
They can just keep making sequels with the characters that have the right things, like how the new hero in the Star Wars trilogy was a woman instead of a man.
Yeah, and they had the Asian girl in there to try to even it out. And there was two girls.
Oh, and the black stormtrooper who leaves the stormtroopers. Oh yeah, that woman with pink hair who's in control of the army.
Yeah, so they've touched on a little bit of wokeness, which is fine. I don't give a shit, right? As long as it, I'm with you. As long as it interfered with plot and character development. And all that. The problem is when I see that
in the new Star Wars. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say the problem with all that is it's distracting, because as soon as I see it, my brain goes, "Oh, there it is," you know. Oh, there it is.
Yeah,
and I can't
There's no woke social commentary though. It's just characters are
Yeah. Well,
different
like
colors.
in the
Like, I
Star
wouldn't
Wars, in the
expect
Star
every
Wars,
single stormtrooper to be white. They all probably
yeah,
well, and in this era, they're not clones. Like in the
yeah. Well,
previous era, there would have been all white, or
That's right.
not white, but New Zealander. They would have been all Maori or whatever.
yeah, yeah,
Because
And that's
the original one is Maori, and they did play that up, but
but
in the new
that's not the
advancement of the
blatant
story.
yeah.
that's not the
But
that's not the
like
blatant
it,
wokeism that we're looking for, though. It's when it's right in your face. Like, for example, it's like all
yeah,
4 Ghostbusters are female now. There it is, because they were male before, and now it's totally flipped, right? We don't know what the stormtroopers were. They could have been, midgets underneath there for all we know, right?
Oh no, we
It-
knew what they were. Like, at least for the original stormtrooper, the clone troopers. But these ones, it could have been anybody. Because they're not like real. They're not clones in this
Right,
era.
right. But it would be like like they're not a specific, like it would be like Leia if they were to remake Leia the Star Wars these days and make Leia into a man or something like that, right? She
Well,
was a
they
female
wouldn't do
before.
that though. Like, they haven't done that with Star Wars. They introduce new characters. They don't like change the gender of old characters and race of old characters. They just create new characters instead.
Right. But you know why they do it, which is fine, right? So like when the new Star Wars, they put a female, like what's her name, or as a female Skywalker or whatever,
is it Ray something?
Rey, right? They didn't go
Ray,
Right.
yeah, yeah,
Lucas Skywalker. They didn't put another white male in there. They put a female in there, right? Which is fine. But my brain has a tendency to go, oh, there it is, right?
It doesn't to me, because I don't think Brandon Sanderson is woke, and he plays with his leads all the time.
I see. I think the thing is,
I don't think he is, but I think
there you
all
go.
these Hollywood execs and the people that fund all these movies want some kind of like, here it is.
Yeah.
The
I
Twitter
know.
mob
I
is
know what you
asking for it.
mean.
Here it
Like
is.
you can do that. You can do that without it being a blatantly woke thing. Like
Well,
that
how
can
do
be
you
the
do
reason.
it without
That
being
can be the reason
accused
that
of being
that
woke?
can be reason. That can be the reason that you change a character's gender or race. But that doesn't mean that you have to make their entire existence as a character be all about that. Like that. Like in the new Star Wars movies, that
Yeah, the fact that she's a
basically was the
girl, they
case.
don't
Like
even
they're not.
pull it up, bring it
Yeah,
up,
they
right?
don't. Yeah, they don't make her whole story be all about how she's a woman. She's just a hero character who happens to be a woman. That's why it's not like a blatantly woke thing. But similar to in Batman, the characters, they don't emphasize that the characters are black or that characters are female or anything like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Only the villains.
Yeah.
With the white
There's-
privilege line.
There's some stuff that they're not intentionally putting in there on purpose to be woke. But I mean, if a blockbuster movie comes out, Disney or anything this summer, it would be hard for you to sit through, or for me, and to be honest with myself and say I'm not looking for some kind of woke thing that they put into it. And maybe it's just a little game that I play for myself when I'm sitting there in the theater, if it's a boring movie. And that's fine. If I don't give a fuck. Like I said, as long as the movie is good.
Yeah.
I just think that a lot of the times when they aim for that to be the single factor and they discard plot and character development and all these other things that are critical to a movie, aka Ghostbusters, they just wanted to come out with a female version of it. And I'm not like sexist or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I just think that Hollywood execs got together and said, okay, what's going to sell next, right? And they said, okay, let's
What about the Ghostbusters that came out after that? Is that one any good?
I haven't seen it.
Afterlife?
Have you seen it, Chris?
No, I didn't see it.
I think it's one with Paul Rudd, right?
Yeah, but this like goes back to my point of like they flooded the market with stupid remakes and
Yeah. we should do movie chats on the original Ghostbusters at some point. Those are good movies.
Yeah, I have my daughter watch the second one, and
Yeah?
I was very proud that she didn't get scared of the movie.
I remember I was young enough when I first watched the Ghostbusters movies that I did get scared at a few parts.
Yeah,
Well,
the
part
ghouls.
2, it's the part where they're in the subway and there's like severed heads on stakes. I was like telling my daughter, I was like, this scene's coming up. I'm not sure if she's gonna get scared. Like, are you sure you want to watch it? And she said, yeah. And she watched it and she didn't get scared at it. I was surprised. I was like, oh, okay.
The statues that come to life on the Empire State Building too, they used to freak me out when I was a kid.
Oh, and the first one?
Yeah, on the first one.
Yeah, the demon dog thing.
That's right. Yeah, those ones.
Yeah, I remember the first one. Yeah, the first one. I can't think of the scary things except maybe those demon dogs and maybe Zool was really freaky looking.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, part 2 is like the severed heads. I thought, let's see how she handles that. She handled it pretty well.
How old is she?
6.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, I was still scared by stuff like that when I was around that age.
Yeah, that's why I was surprised because it was like, I think maybe it's just zombies in general are kind of not that scary to her anymore. I'm pretty sure if I put Night of the Living Dead, she'd probably freak out.
Oh, okay.
But these are just kind of severed heads on pikes.
Okay. Would you let her watch this Batman movie?
No. Well, it's not like it's. I don't even think she'd like it. It's 3 hours long. Like,
true.
I'd let her watch the original Batman movie because it's shorter and it's kind of goofier. But yeah, this one, no, it's. I think she'd probably find it boring, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
I'm not sure I would want to watch a 3-hour-long movie if I were a 6-year-old either.
Yeah,
it's PG because I remember I was looking it up because I was thinking about showing it to my kids, but then I was like, no, they'd be too young and they wouldn't get it. But yeah, it's.
I think it's too long. It's just too long, and the pacing's not there for someone that's 6 years old.
Yeah. That's part of how it's different in an interesting way, like we were talking about, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like it totters that line of like, I don't know. You could make the argument that you could show your kids the 1989 version, Michael Keaton Batman. It's lighthearted, it's violent, but maybe just fisticuffs where somebody ggets punched in the face. Where it's like, I'm not saying this is a rated R version of Batman. It's very gory and that kind of violent, but it's darker.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's more a mature theme to it versus the lighthearted Batmans, and that goes back to the different versions of Batman that we've been discussing.
Well, I think
the best Batman for kids is probably the worst Batman with George Clooney.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, because it's all cheesy.
Oh,
the Adam colorful West. And campy. Adam West too would be good for kids.
For kids, yeah, for sure. Because that's like silliness, when they're on the rubber shark in the water, like that's just
that's definitely the polar opposite of this Batman. Yeah,
100%.
And it has the comic book phrases when action happens. Bam, pow,
ow. Yeah,
and then it almost seems like the camera is like slightly off kilter, so it looks like it's not level. It's kind of tilted. I remember that I was like, why is this freaking camera always tilted?
Yeah. All right, let's finish this clip here and go to the Vaush one.
Again, it's got a little bit of woke politics, but that's really not the problem. The problem is the broader woke orientation of the film. If the Nolan Batman was about the idea that you help innocent people by fighting criminality and provide an inspiration to people to fight criminality, if that's the idea of Batman, which it is, that's completely thrown on its head here. Matt Reeves, who's credited as both a director and a writer on the film, he does not.
No, the point is that he wants to inspire people instead of the fighting crime. that the Christian Bale Dark Knight does less than he actually does inspire people.
Does not like Batman, and I can't get over this. How do you give $150 million to a dude to make a movie about Batman when he clearly does not like Batman? When he thinks that Batman is bad and that Batman has to be shown the error of his ways and learn to be a nicer human being. By the way, the very end of the movie, Catwoman, who at no point has actually demonstrated any sort of moral bona fides. Like, I'm not sure she does a moral thing in the entire movie. At the very end, she says to him, "Why don't you run away with me? And we'll go rob some hedge fund CEOs." And he doesn't say back to her, that's bad to rob.
Even he just said she doesn't do a moral thing in the entire movie, in spite of the fact that earlier he said that all of the black characters are good people and all of the white characters are bad people.
Yeah, Catwoman's morally gray. That's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Hedge fund CEOs. Instead, he thinks about it for a moment. She's like, no, you belong in Gotham. The generalized cheap left-wing sensibility is very silly with regard to Catwoman. If I have not made clear at this point, the movie's also 8 hours long. It's like a Wagnerian ring cycle, this film. It just goes on and on and on. Every shot is composed in order to have people walk across rooms. Like Christopher Nolan would snap that cut right to the action. If you watch Dark Knight, there is no wasted motion in that film, and it's 2.5 hours long. This is
like a Wagnerian ring cycle, okay?
3 hours long and it feels like 4. I never check my watch during movies, particularly not a Batman movie. And I checked my watch at least twice during this film. It's better than Marvel because everything's better than Marvel because Marvel doesn't take characters seriously and Marvel feels like cotton candy. This doesn't feel like cotton candy. It just feels like a fundamental betrayal of the character, which is just, it's lazy writing and more.
I don't know. It seems like, Infinity War and Endgame were pretty serious for Marvel.
Yeah, I thought those.
And there were how about Logan, for example?
Yeah, Logan is pretty dark.
Yeah. That's the most grimdark superhero movie ever, other than, I don't know, maybe Blade.
No, I think Logan's probably more grimdark.
It is pretty, in terms of not just being violent, but also being just hopeless and depressing.
Right.
Yeah.
More than that, it's not nice to the audience. The audience wants to see Batman be Batman and be good at being Batman and know why he's being Batman. They don't want to see Batman learn the lesson that being Batman is bad. That defeats the purpose of going to a Batman film. Alrighty, so that is my review of The Batman. I know. A lot of people really like the movie because, hey, it's Batman. It's hard to dislike Batman.
Batman is not Batman. It's bad because Batman is not good at being Batman. He's bad at being Batman.
Folks, if you like this video, please like and subscribe and recommend some.
Okay.
So is he complaining that Batman fails or that because we do get to see him beat people up,
I think he's complaining that doesn't have that, Bruce Wayne changes his mind and decides to pursue hope instead of vengeance. He's supposed to just always pursue vengeance. All right, let's go.
I disagree that he's always pursuing vengeance.
Yeah.
It's not like every single criminal in Gotham City killed his parents. Like, come on.
Yeah, of course. Exactly. All right, let's go to Vaush's analysis of this. He liked it more than Ben Shapiro did, in spite of the title of this video, The Batman was so frustrating.
The Vaush pit.
Okay. I just got back home from watching The Batman. And the whole time I was driving back, I was talking with Kanye, going like, here's my take. Until I realized that I was just like pre-running the bit where I talk about this on stream. I'm not streaming because everyone leaves the stream or has to cover their ears to avoid spoilers. So I'm just going to talk because the title of this, I think, is going to be The Batman Was So Frustrating, which it really was, but I liked it. I liked it a lot, but it was very frustrating, and I'm going to spoil everything. So if you've watched it or you don't care about not having watched it already, then go ahead. But yeah, okay. So just right off the bat, okay? Robert Pattinson makes a great Batman. I love the brooding emo energy that he brings to it. The fact that they just gave up on the idea that Batman can just miraculously dodge hundreds of bullets when he's fighting mobsters, and that he just made his armor completely unrealistic. I'm glad they did that. It was very it was very funny. I think it's based, I'm happy they did that. So, artistically, the movie, at least to me, is really, really nice. I really like the character they brought to Gotham because historically, whenever I look at Gotham, I just feel like I'm looking at Detroit, like in the Dark Knight movie. It's just like, okay, it's like a big city with skyscrapers and there's poverty,
No,
It never felt like
Chicago.
there was that much character to it,
Or Detroit,
which was always
Yeah.
a bit of a shame. Even
Yeah,
The
it's
Joker,
pretty
which was a
poor.
really good movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about it in this movie, the way they managed to nail what I consider to be like the fundamental essence of Gotham, which is that it's supposed to be very corrupt, obviously, and full of crime. But the corruption isn't like mobsters and criminals and corrupt officials feeding on a dead city. I always got the impression that Gotham was supposed to be an incredibly wealthy city, a very powerful city that was also really corrupt. And the corruption was the reason the money never made it from that industry down to the people. How you have this incredible juxtaposition between wealth and poverty that I think this movie just nailed. And they comment on it a
Yeah.
lot too. That, I mean, the fact that Gotham Manor was at the top of like a penthouse apartment, it was just like a gothic apartment loft. I really, really like that. I love the locations. I love the fact that they, in addition to showcasing the dilapidation and the poverty, they also showed off like parts of Gotham that looked really well to do. I really liked that. I thought they did a great job with that. I got to take a breath. I just ran up here. Yeah. My, my Spurg energy. Okay. So if you're watching this, you've probably seen the movie, but in case you haven't, the basic gist of it is the main villain is the Riddler. The basic gist of it is that the Riddler is targeting elements of corruption within the Gotham, city officials who work with the mob, that kind of stuff. And honestly, Batman doesn't do much throughout the movie. He doesn't set, he even admits this in the movie. He says it's the
Ben says
Riddler's
that
name now.
too.
It is. The Riddler's like, here's the next person I'm going to kill. Here's how you can stop me. And then they just post like the Impossible Game 3 Flash challenge or something, and Batman's trying to figure it out, and he figures it out.
Oh, that's one of the unskippable
Benadryl.
commercials.
Figures it out just in time to be an accomplice to the Riddler's next murder, So the Riddler set the pace of the film. It was a very long film. It was like 3 hours long. It did feel long too, unfortunately. Could have felt worse, but it did feel long. It always felt like the climax had happened, or at least was about to happen, and then like Batman turns to Gordan, and he's like, he's planning something. And I kept thinking he already has. He's planned like 6 things already. He's planning another thing. Okay, I guess he's the Riddler. My main issues with the film are, well, there are a lot of political issues. I know, what a shock, that I have with the film. Oh, sorry, don't mind my dirty dishes, and also the fact that I left my lizard's light on. I swear to God that she's not dying in the burning heat of the sun. Just the camera's light chip isn't calibrated to handle that level of luminosity. She's actually quite happy in the heat, because that's what lizards are like. The approach they took towards the end of the movie when they were resolving everything, all the plot threads, because it felt like they were going one way, and then they really, really didn't. All right? So over the course of the movie, attention is called to the fact that Bruce Wayne is a recluse who doesn't use his incredible fortune to help the city in any way, Even in the previous films, like the Dark Knight trilogy, I think they explicitly indicate that Bruce Wayne is using his money to, like, help the city out a little bit. But in this one, no. Bruce Wayne is a total recluse. And I actually like that a lot, because the whole point of Batman's character is that he's like this traumatized edgelord
Yeah, we talked about that.
who uses his wealth to fund a personal war of vengeance, which is kind of like a motto in this film, vengeance, a personal war of vengeance against the criminal underbelly of the city, rather than make any real changes, right? Like, because we know, us woke lefties, right, that if you were super wealthy and your city was full of rotten decay, the best thing you could do was use your wealth to fund social infrastructure, to use your influence to back candidates who you trust and believe in, to call attention to meaningful problems and try to fix them, use power instead of your fists. But but I like the fact that he's ignorant of that. Batman shouldn't be like super introspective and self-aware. He's damaged. That's kind of the point of the character. That's, I think, when he's at his best, honestly. It's when he's a smart guy, right? He's very determined and dedicated. He's an inventor, he's inventive, he's a detective, but like emotionally he's not all there. At least that's how I've always read him, and I like that. It's a character flaw that can be examined. And in this movie, it is present. In fact, they explicitly address it. At one point, midway through the film, an up-and-coming political candidate tells Bruce Wayne, like, hey, I notice you haven't donated any of your quadrillion dollars to the city. Could we maybe, if I win, can we like work on that? Can we use your wealth to improve the city, please? The convo doesn't continue from there, but I think they're setting up the pieces like, oh, Bruce Wayne is going to realize that being the Batman isn't how he helps Gotham, like maybe he can do that for fun against like a supervillain now and again, but the real way to help would be using his wealth, like really getting back into the game as a public figure. And as time goes on, I feel like,
yeah, like we talked about, right?
Yeah, well, because in the Nolan movies, he kind of does both, right? So he's like a philanthropist on one side, and on the other side, he's like the Dark Knight who punches bad guys.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like they're going to do that more and more towards the end as we get closer and closer. Like after the Riddler is caught, Batman seems really like disturbed by the Riddler's approach towards changing the city. The Riddler says, and this is almost verbatim what Batman said earlier in the film, all you need is fear and targeted violence to make a difference. This is explicitly what Batman does. That's explicitly the opening 5 minutes of the film are him essentially saying this, but in more words. And Batman, rather than acknowledging, oh, the vigilantism that I am engaging in is not providing the positive outcomes I was looking for, he gets really mad and just shouts at the Riddler, and the Riddler just has a meltdown. They don't really acknowledge that, But they're still building up the pieces, and I think like, okay, so he doesn't acknowledge it here, but maybe it'll hit him in the face later, and it happens. Okay, he's beaten up some some radicalized 4chaners, whatever, who are going to do a mass shooting. It's very topical, and Batman's beating the shit out of this one kid, and they're like, stop, you gotta stop, you're gonna kill him, and they pull back the kid's mask, and he looks like fine. He looks like he took a couple of good punches to the face, but like his face is intact enough for him to talk with.
I have to say, like, I was super surprised too. I thought when he was gonna lift his mask up, his face was just gonna be obliterated, because he was like really wailing on him for a while. And when he takes the mask off, he like has a slightly bloodied nose with no swelling whatsoever.
I don't really remember the details about what I thought it looked like. I seem to remember that he looked pretty fucked up, but I don't know.
And when I saw it, I was like, man, he should have missing teeth, a crushed nose, like broken eye sockets, and he just looked like slightly, like his nose got slightly bloodied.
How did he seem to you, Chris?
Yeah, I can't remember it vividly what his face looked like.
Like I was expecting to see a horrific bloody mess, and that's not what I
remember seeing a bloody mess. But didn't he have like dark? Yeah, I'd have to watch it again.
Yeah. But yeah, if that's true, that's a good point. Yeah.
Without even a lisp, really. So, and they ask, "Who are you, kid?" And the kid says, "I'm vengeance," which is exactly what Batman said when he was asked who he was earlier in the film. And you can tell they're dropping it right there. Batman now realizes, oh, framing my opposition to Gotham's problems as a vengeful hunt against those who have done wrong. This is a bad logical ploy. This is like a really bad framework from which to make change. They directly acknowledge this in the text. And then the weirdest thing happens. That is to say, nothing happens. The end of the movie is Robert Pattinson doing this monologue about how maybe vengeance isn't what Gotham needs. Maybe I need to help people. And he's doing this like National Guard assistance where they're like victims of a natural disaster being saved via helicopter. And he's like carrying people to the stretcher. And it looks, with respect, I mean, ridiculous, because you have all these like National Guardsmen. It looks like it could be a scene out of a really self-serious disaster movie or like a documentary. And then there's, in broad daylight, Batman walking around doing one human's worth of good per second because he's just a guy, right? Like Batman's like in this instance, he's just being like a volunteer, and I get the value of a public figure volunteering, but I wasn't under the impression that Batman was like a beloved hero of the city the way Spider-Man is in most of his films. Like he's only ever referred to as a vigilante. I feel like
Yeah, you brought that up earlier, right, Dusty?
Yeah, like Batman's not like the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Like the city typically doesn't look at him as like, oh, this guy's helping us out. And then I think even in the other films, like regular people are definitely scared of him.
Yeah, it tends to be that way.
Universe, if a Gotham citizen had looked at the TV and seen the newscasters go, Batman is helping people out at the city square, and look at here's this video of him taking someone to the stretcher, they would just be like, isn't that guy a criminal? Isn't that guy why is he doing that? It was very strange. And he never uses, at least in this movie, as far as I heard, he never uses his personal wealth to help the city out, in spite of being explicitly asked to by the political candidate who wins at the end and is meant to represent a change towards like hopeful optimism for the future of Gotham. I thought what they were setting up was like he would take off his cape and cowl, like it'd be the end of Batman. Towards the end of the film, he says something
I was
like,
thinking that
maybe
too.
it's the end of the Batman. So maybe he's realizing like he needs to move past this. He needs to he needs to hang up the cape and do real work as a billionaire. It's a funny sentence I didn't think I'd say here. But he doesn't. It's like they set this change up and it never actually happens. They put everything in place, and at the end he's still just Batman. He's just Batman. Except he's helping the National Guard carry people to stretchers in broad daylight. Not to say that's a bad thing to do. Just like, is that what you learned? Is that what Gotham needs? Just like one very heavily armored man in eyeshadow doing the work of like a regular volunteer? I don't know. So thematically, I feel like that was a bit of a slip up. I don't really know.
Who is this guy?
Again,
that's Vaush.
He's a lefty YouTuber who he debated Charlie Kirk once, which was entertaining. I think that's when I first saw him, when he was debating Charlie Kirk on Tim Pool's channel.
Yeah, that's the first time I heard of him also.
Yeah. I think he has some good takes on things, and then some takes I totally disagree with him because he's pretty uber lefty for my taste on some issues. But he has
like right wing. He's also right wing on other issues.
That's true. Yeah.
I was like, dude, he wants us to get a war with Russia, basically.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
It's like, Jesus, man.
Yeah.
Does he do like movie reviews? Like, does he do movie reviews?
He mostly does political stuff, I would say.
Okay, so
yeah, like commentary.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does reviews of like PragerU content, debates like a bunch of people. I think anything accused of woke, I think the only reason he's doing a movie review is because it was, the right was kind of up in arms about it being a woke movie. So
Yeah,
I think that's
yeah,
probably why he's talking about it. But he doesn't regularly
yeah,
do movie reviews, from what I know.
yeah. I don't think he does that many, and he does a pretty he does a funny review of Ben Shapiro's review of it that we watched too.
Like he does a review of Ben Shapiro's. That's funny.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Again, I still enjoy the film. Please don't crucify me. I know people give me shit for my media takes, but I really wanted to put thought into this. And yeah, but now for the political stuff, okay? And you guys probably know where I'm going with this one. For the first 2/3 at least of the movie, the Riddler is almost explicitly the protagonist and moral good of the story, and Batman is in the wrong almost. Because initially, the Riddler's plan is to, in a very media attention grabbing fashion, expose corruption in Gotham by targeting, killing, and then exposing the secrets of city officials who were participants in a cover up which essentially allowed a mob boss to run the city for 20 years. This is like the height of criminal corruption. And the conspiracy goes deep. They show it very clearly in the film, okay? It's not just like one or two people, it's everyone. The DA, tons of people in the police force, political candidates, everyone is in on this. It's it's like a holistic criminal conspiracy. Now, Batman is a vigilante. Vigilantism in general in real life is a really bad idea because due process is cool and good, actually. The times when vigilantism can be morally justified are, I'm generalizing here, but as follows. One, when you're doing something that only you can do, and also that needs to be done to prevent harm, right? So you could even take like a, what is it every guy fantasizes about in high school? Like if a school shooting happens and you do like a triple backflip off the roof into the skylight, and you knee them directly in the face and their gun leaves their hand, and you grab the gun and do like a twist and you shoot all the other school shoot. I'm sure you've thought about this. I haven't. I didn't when I was young. And a form of vigilantism. Okay, fine, whatever. You stop a mass shooting. Okay, fine, sure, obvious, clear. But more interestingly, the cases where vigilantism can be justified is when there isn't really a functioning alternative. See, what we call vigilantism only exists in the context of a functioning court system, right? Like, it's not vigilantism if it's like Mad Max Road Warrior status, where there are no judges, there are no courts, there are no police, people just wander around, kill each other. Like, if you were in a tribal scenario, like beating someone else to death isn't vigilantism. Vigilantism exists in the context of and acceptance of a universal court system, at least with jurisdiction in the area that you're in, right? So the thing is, in Gotham, it's pretty much explicitly stated, at least in this film, that the entire political, legal, police, criminal justice system, everything is completely corrupt. Like, so corrupt. It goes up to the top and down to the bottom. It's incredibly corrupt. And in an environment like that, vigilantism is really easy to justify morally. I think that a lot of what the Riddler does is good. Not just him, honestly, him killing corrupt officials is is kind of minor compared to the greater good of drawing attention to their crimes, which, as the film progresses, does directly lead to greater civic awareness of these problems and like social antagonism and unrest, which is kind of the goal if you want to expose corruption in a city, right? He kills them, but like he's basically killing like mob stooges who are like drug peddlers and murderers, and I just don't really care, I guess. Not to say innocent people didn't get hurt. He drove a bomb in the middle of a funeral. It's all supervillain show business. But broadly, it seems, at least for the earlier and middle and even the early to late, like the first 4/5 of the film, the Riddler's just kind of the good guy, and Batman is trying to stop him, not because he opposes the corruption being unmasked, but because he has this archaic opposition to murder, which, look, I get it if it's Batman's principle, but look, there's one particular instance of this that really gets my goat, okay? The big mob boss guy, Catwoman is going to kill him for personal reasons. And Batman, of course, shows up and grabs the gun, and he's like, "Don't do this. You'll be as bad as him." And it's like, no, she won't. She's killing a mob boss who killed her friend and her mother, a person who's the head of a criminal conspiracy that's ruined this city, probably killed hundreds of thousands of people through the neglect, malnutrition, exposure, just from the pure extortion of city funds being taken away from social services. You won't become that by killing a person.
I think Batman's point of doing that, though, is that you don't get ironically, because he's pursuing vengeance in this movie, especially, he's a pacifist in terms of shooting people with guns and killing people because he knows that actually killing someone does not yet get you justice.
Well, I think what Vaush is saying is that in the completely corrupt system, beating up like a high-level mob boss is not going to do anything.
Yeah.
They're going to get out on bail or whatever within the next few hours.
Yeah.
And it's going to get swept under the rug. So I think he's saying that like Riddler is actually taking care of business, while the best thing that Batman can do is just like punch a mob boss in the face, and then later on they're out on the streets like 8 hours later.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I get that.
Person like that. What nonsense is this? Like, can you imagine? Like every other film, like any other film, like I get this is a superhero thing, but this whole film is gritty and edgy. You can only become as bad as him, Well, I guess so maybe point taken. It's really dumb. If Batman himself doesn't want to kill, that's fine. If he wants to tell other people not to kill, that's also fine. But the narrative of the film.
1, 2, 3.
Stupid,
1, 2,
unskippable
3.
ads.
Film
Sing, James
condoning
Brown.
his message that killing a murderous mob boss makes you as bad as him is just stupid. It's really dumb, and it's borderline reactionary as well. It's very much like liberal, phony pacifism, where systemic violence, which is institutionalized, is acceptable, but retaliatory or defensive violence against that system is unacceptable, really, really dumb. And a lot of people die in this movie. Like, I don't really know how many exactly, but it's got at least a 4-digit count. I'll say that much. Maybe 5, a lot of people. But anyway, the Riddler's coming off kind of like the good guy for the longest time in this movie. And then they do a Tyler Durden thing. They do the thing they did with Bane back in The Dark Knight Rises. I hate this movie trope. I hate it. I hate it so much. When you have a villain who's got a really good point, and oftentimes the villain who has a really good point has a good point because they're drawing attention to social injustice. That's usually the good point they have. The writers then realize, oh God, we need to up the stakes. And I just realized this guy comes off way too sympathetic for us to be rooting for his downfall. We need to make him go over the edge. So then the Riddler, who has up until this point exclusively been targeting people associated with corruption, criminality, the looting and destruction of Gotham.
Yeah, you brought that up, Dusty.
Okay, now I'm just going to blow up the seawalls around downtown so I drown thousands of people, and then I'm going to instruct my radicalized mass shooters to just gun down a bunch of people at a campaign victory speech of a lady who seems like she actually is kind of cool. What? Why? Like, up until this point, I was under the impression the Riddler was angry and bitter, and yes, genuinely insane, because the city had been essentially raped by corruption, and he wanted to lash out against the people who had done it. And his methods weren't clean, and they weren't pretty, and they weren't morally, unimpeachable, but they worked. See, the thing that frustrates me especially is that after Batman talks Catwoman down from killing the mob boss, they arrest him, and then Riddler kills the mob boss. The guy dies anyway, just 5 minutes afterwards. Got killed by another guy. Okay, right. But the thing is, what was the plan if they had arrested the mob boss? They exclusively indicate in the movie. Why did I say exclusively? They explicitly indicated in the movie that the city was corrupt down to its roots. The origin story of this big criminal conspiracy was literally like a rigged deal in a drug bust through the criminal justice system. How the fuck do you know you're going to get a good trial on the mob boss who you insist on arresting? This is what I mean about vigilantism being morally justifiable if there's no alternative. The criminal justice system, the court system in Gotham, explicitly in the text is bananas. It is fucked. It is not gonna work. So what, you arrest the mob boss and then he just kills all the witnesses? It's not like that hasn't happened before in the movie. That's a thing that happened before. He had people who had dirt on him killed. Like, why wouldn't he just do that again? Sometimes death is the thing that you need to do, This is one of the reasons why I respect Avatar: The Last Airbender, who realized they couldn't have their pacifist main character Aang end a 3-season, epic by murdering Ozai, even though Ozai, boy, especially for a kid's show, man, was there ever a villain who deserved to die, man? Ozai, you could morally justify that one. Oh boy, you.
Dusty, have you seen Avatar: The Last Airbender? I haven't seen it.
I have not. That's on my bucket list at some point in time.
You haven't seen it, have you, Chris?
No, I haven't. My kids are just getting into like Naruto and some anime, so I'm sure they're gonna watch it soon. So
okay,
and you're gonna get into it with them.
Sometimes I do, depending on what show they're into.
I've heard that my daughter watching Pokemon right now.
Oh, sweet.
Watching Indigo League, the original first season.
Oh, okay. I remember watching Pokemon when I was a kid.
Yeah, there's multiple ones now.
Oh, there's like 20 seasons of Pokemon, man.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that. And there's so many different games, too.
Yeah, it never stopped. It's still ongoing. It's probably going to be like one of the longest running series ever.
Oh, wow. Well, there's one... I think it's the longest running show ever. I don't know if it's the longest running show, but it's one of them. There's one that's even been running even longer than that. It's a British soap opera that my parents watch called Coronation Street. It's started in the 60s.
Oh, there's a lot of those like American soap opera shows that are like 30 and 40 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, 20 years is a long time for the Pokemon show, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
You could. It's very much an ontologically evil situation for that guy. But rather than simply arrest him, they recognize that no arrest of Ozai is going to be sufficient until the mechanism by which he achieved power is taken away. They can't take away his hereditary birthright. They can supersede it, of course, through Zuko becoming Fire Lord. What they can do instead is take away his firebending, which they do. And then he's just a regular guy and not nearly as dangerous. The problem with the real world is we don't have bending and magical ways of taking away bending. And the power that a mob boss has continues to exist when they're arrested. There are plenty of real world examples where you'll have figures in the mob arrested and they'll just get out because, well, depending on the country and how.
Oui, Hélène Chaudeux, juste vous dire que votre technologie de protection du cuir chevelu travaille encore.
This one has more ads than the Ben Shapiro
one. French ads now?
The justice system is.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Just kill people who oppose you and bribe officials.
Maybe because I'm in Canada.
much harder than it is in a country, say, like Mexico, which historically has had serious problems with the cartel. Historically, Japan has had major problems with the Yakuza, though they had a big crackdown on that a couple of decades ago. And since then, things have been a lot better. I'm only saying that the idea that Catwoman killing the mob boss would have like tainted her is bad enough on its own, but the movie didn't even have the balls to let the mob boss live and show us the consequences of what him being allowed to live would have actually done, which would have been several dozen dead witnesses, maybe a couple of dead jurors and court officials, and then he gets off in a technicality. In the Gotham that movie sets up, that is exactly what would have happened. But then he
That
just
might be
gets shot
true.
by the Riddler, so... Anyway, I'm sorry, I got sidetracked there. The point that I'm getting at with they pulled a Tyler Durden is that you have a main antagonist who has a really good point, and then he has to go psycho in order to justify the narrative antagonism. You know, they have to justify his role as an antagonist. Bane is the worst example of this, and it's all like that I can immediately think of, and it's also a Batman movie because Bane is literally Occupy Wall Street. Like he goes out there, you know, he robs Gotham Wall Street. They're like, "There's no money here. This is a stock exchange," and Bane's like, "Oh, really? Then why are you people here?" Which is a great line. I don't know if my mic even picked it up through my hand, and my voice was probably off, but great line. You know, Bane goes on this whole speech about how the wealthy of Gotham are raping and pillaging and looting the city, and yeah. And Batman's trying to stop him. Batman, no. And then Bane's like, "All right, also I have a nuclear bomb, and I'm just going to nuke Gotham." And it's like, why? Well, I know why. They did this in BioShock Infinite too with I forget the name of the Vox Populi, you know, in BioShock Infinite, you know, Booker DeWitt, the main...
Have you guys played that?
I have. I've beaten it.
No.
Okay.
We're
No?
talking about Comstock
characters
right
running
now.
around basically like a white supremacist
Oh, that's who it is?
early 20th century America that's floating in
I
the
wouldn't say
sky.
Vox Populi
It's a
is
whole, it's a
white
BioShock.
supremacists. They're like, I guess they're like more xenophobic.
Oh, okay. Is it, you mean like it less of a racial thing?
No, it's not a racial thing. It's about workers. It's like a populist movement
Okay.
in the game, at least.
Okay.
Shock thing, you know. And the Vox Populi are basically the underclass of the city, the very poor and mostly people of color rising up. But then they become too woke, you see. They were fighting against essentially just an apartheid system, but they became too woke, and they had to have the main lady of it kill an innocent white boy, which then forced Elizabeth to kill her, and it's, oh, how tragic, you know. And I know they retcon this later in the DLC, and I don't care. hasty post hoc, you know, compensation. They did what they did, okay? And what they did was employ a really common narrative trope, which is, you know, what if the social justice go too far? I don't know, man. I don't get what they did with the Riddler. The first 4/5 of the movie, I admit him trying to mail bomb Bruce Wayne was a bit much, because Bruce Wayne, he literally said, like, pay for the sins of the father. Like,
They decided to have the bad guy win, but not have him be the good guy. They didn't go all the way. Yeah.
Didn't make much sense either. The first 3 guys he killed were explicitly corrupt officials. And they're like, okay, now Bruce Wayne has to die because he's the son of a corrupt official, which, no, but okay. And then for his final act, he just decides to kill all of Gotham, basically, you know, kill a ton of people with, you know, who have done nothing apart from just like live and exist. Yeah. His motivations would have been way more consistent. Batman should have hung up the cape at the end of the movie. You know, the Riddler should have remained consistent with his principles, which would have given him the ability to confront Batman on his values. Well, why shouldn't I be able to kill these people, huh? Well, what's wrong? They've killed plenty of people. They've ruined this city of millions. Why can't what some violence against them is so bad compared to what they've done? It was the only way of changing things. You, Batman, in the beginning of the movie, were fighting against random thugs on a subway. And the Riddler was exposing and killing powerful, corrupt officials. Batman, you were the person lacking vision here. You were the person making the mistakes. You could have been going after the big high rollers. You could have been using your wealth, your influence, your intrigue, your social power, and your detective skills to find out what was really causing the poverty and the crime in the city, using your vast wealth to address it, and using your Batman skills to directly confront, arrest, and expose as a vigilante these people. But you weren't. You were beating up random dipshits on a subway. The Riddler stepped in and did his job, and you didn't like it because it was a little too bloody for you. But you know what? He still did it, and you couldn't. But no, the movie couldn't commit to that. So, instead he has to go all Joker mode at the end. Literally, actually, because Joker shows up at the end. Also, don't you think having Batman hang up the cape at the end of this movie would mean that if they made a sequel, they would get to have a really, really cool, like, I have to come back moment, like they could even have that in the trailer, like, because Joker's hyped up at the end of this one. I don't know if they'll do a sequel, but just in case if they don't do a sequel, then why not have him hang up the cape, right? If they do a sequel, have it be like a year or two in the future, he's using his Bruce Wayne persona to help out the city, then the Gotham starts killing a lot of people, and nobody can figure out, and he's and Bruce Wayne is like, all right, maybe if I invest more money in this community program, I can fix this problem. I can't. Joker's a supervillain, man. Supervillains got to be taken down by superheroes. And he knows that, and he goes back into the action. Come on, that'd be a pretty good opening to a follow-up.
That's actually a really good idea.
Yeah, it is.
I missed my calling. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Love you guys. Hope you enjoyed.
Yeah.
That's actually a pretty good idea. I was like, yeah, that'd be pretty interesting. Because it makes more sense for him to fight supervillains than like random thugs on the street,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it would be a good motivation, and it would be a good motivation for Joker to pull him back into being the Batman because he didn't want to go back to his old ways because he likes it so much. It would be a perfect motivation.
Interesting. Well, we'll see what the sequel is going to be like.
Yeah.
Maybe something effectively similar might happen. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. That could be the case for sure. All right. Let's try to go through Jared's reaction to the movie as quickly as possible here.
How do we create real change to heal and advance a dysfunctional society? And does a vigilante punching bad guys in the face actually do anything? Well, what's up, guys? Jared here, and we're going to be talking about this and more in this review and analysis of Matt Reeves' The Batman. Now, for the first part of this review, there are going to be no spoilers, so for those of you who haven't seen the movie yet and just want to know my general thoughts, those will be included. And then after that, we'll be analyzing the film's themes and philosophical developments when compared to other Batman films. But first, really quick, I want to tell you guys about my new Twitch stream. You should follow me on Twitch. The link is so you should follow me there. You can ask me any work, and the answer is yes. It works tonally. Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson pull it off. Be sure to see it in a theater. It's totally worth it. Pattinson or Pat or whatever you want to call Robert Pattinson's version of Batman is good. He pulls it off. For those of you who have been following him since he started working with David Cronenberg, you probably guessed that he's the real deal, and he is. And he's probably the best Batman, certainly since Christian Bale. Not that Ben Affleck was necessarily awful. The only really awful Batman we've ever had are George Clooney, and Val Kilmer was all right. But it's not just Robert Pattinson that excellent ensemble cast. Everybody is bringing their A game. John Turturro.
Yeah, he agrees George Clooney is terrible.
Tony is really good. But not only that, just all the cops, all the citizens of Gotham, more so than in any other Batman movie, you really get the feeling that these Gothamites are city people. From the very specific accents that they have to the way they carry themselves, these are real city people. It gives Gotham a very lived-in feeling that when compared to other Batman movies, you don't really get as much of a sense of. Now, this movie is a mix of Saw, Zodiac, Seven, and Watchmen with a little twist of Kurt Cobain thrown in there. And it's not subtle. It wears these influences on its sleeve. I mean, there are whole shots, whole scenes, whole production design choices that are lifted directly from David Fincher films. And it really is those Fincher films that are most obviously a source of inspiration here. You could say that in as much as Joaquin Phoenix's Joker is a remix of Scorsese's King of Comedy and Taxi Driver, you could say The Batman is a remix of Seven and Zodiac. And depending on if you guys like this video, I could probably do a whole video just on those influences. Another thing about the movie that's worth mentioning, and this is not a spoiler, I promise, it has one of the best car chases in recent memory. And it's great not because it has the most cars or the most explosions like The Matrix Reloaded, and it's not great because it has the most crazy spectacle that the Fast and the Furious movies have going on. It's actually a very simple element and a very smart element if done right. It's just rain. The rain makes it one of the most tense and kind of nail-biting car chases that I've seen in many years. It really feels more like Steve McQueen in Bullet than it does any recent kind of CGI era car chase movie.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, we were talking about that minimalist aspect of it, but I forgot about the rain as part of that.
So some really smart action filmmaking going on here. Obviously, I want to talk about the runtime. The 3 hours goes by for the most part pretty quickly. I mean, this is a movie that aspires to be a psychological thriller, and as such, it really keeps your mind hooked for those 3 hours, just like, you know, if you were a, as they call in the movie, a drophead. As the rest of the reviewers have been saying, this is a more gritty and realistic version of Batman. This Batman is fallible, he's vulnerable, and he's more of a detective than he is a ninja. He's not super high tech like Nolan's Batman. He's more a guy with a lot of body armor and conceivably experimental military-grade equipment. And this elevated sense of realism
Like the
also
grappling hook?
extends to how the film deals with themes that are familiar to the Batman films. So now we're going to be transitioning into spoiler territory, so this is a warning. Pause the review now and hit me up later if you haven't seen the movie. But if you haven't seen the movie, you should be making plans right now, because guys, it's a good time. All right, so the film's emphasis on realism in this movie also extends to the efficacy of Batman's efforts. For the first time on the silver screen, we have a Batman who asks himself, am I even making a difference? Can a vigilante make a difference in healing a broken city? So in order to answer that, let's talk about Batman's arc. What does he learn by the end of the movie? So if you followed me during my previous venture, at one point we made a video tracing the symbolic development of villain motivations. And one of the things we talked about was how recent villains like Killmonger in Black Panther, or Thanos in Avengers, or John Lark in Mission Impossible 6 are reacting and fighting against a corrupt, unsustainable, perhaps even irredeemable system, but their solutions are just way too radical. And so even though the status quo is rotten or unsustainable, the good guy has to protect it from a more twisted alternative. The Batman similarly shows us a depraved vision of Gotham, in which almost every official is corrupt. And as it's stated numerous times in the film, it's the system that is rotten to the core, as even the seemingly benevolent Gotham Renewal Program is a front for a drug operation that continues to produce poverty, desperation, and obscene levels of inequality. So we have a status quo that, similar to the Nolan franchise, is corrupt, and Batman is trying
I gotta
to
take
change
off,
that.
dude.
But the answer as
Oh,
to
yeah?
how and how the villain
Yeah, my
informs
battery's
this
dying
answer
here,
is
and I don't know
All
where
right.
the plug is.
All right.
But yeah, we'll
you-
chat soon.
You want to stay and finish this, Dusty, or do you want to stop it here? You there, Dusty? Oh, Dusty must have cut out there. Well,
yeah, my mute wasn't turning off. Yeah, I could stay for sure.
Okay. Oh, I forgot. Didn't get to say bye to Chris there. Yep. Well, thanks for joining, Chris, if you watch this. All right, yeah, let's we can finish this here.
Is quite distinct from Nolan's films in a really interesting way. So we're going to have to jump to the end of the film now when the Riddler reveals to Batman that he was communicating to him through his riddles because he assumed they were on the same team, because they both want to punish corruption. And so the Riddler used Batman's formidable physical strength to help him execute his master plan. At the beginning of the film, when a thug asks Batman who he is, Batman answers, "I'm vengeance." And we see that in the trailer. It's something that's very important, not only to the overall tone and aesthetic of the movie, but also thematically. Because at the end of the film, when one of the Riddler's social media followers / subscribers / Patreon patrons is asked the same thing after a cop takes off his mask, someone says, "Who are you?" And he also responds, "I'm vengeance." And it's here that Batman realizes that the
Oh, another ad.
Riddler's methods are the logical end to Batman's crusade against crime and corruption. This is, if we were to go back to David Fincher's Seven, this is essentially Batman's what's in the box moment. Okay, so if brutalizing evil individuals and spreading fear of
What's in the box
produce positive change, then what can? And this is where the movie gets quite interesting, especially if you frame it, as I have, of being in conversation with the previous Batman films that Nolan helmed, especially when you consider that those movies at the time were also revered as being more gritty, more realistic. So Nolan's trilogy ultimately concludes that evil can be expelled from society through the power of symbols, that the actions of a noble, often self-sacrificial individual can act as a symbol that inspires people to believe in and do good, and that we need these great individuals, whether they be Batman or Harvey Dent or Robin at the end of The Dark Knight Rises, to act as a force of hope that guides individuals toward virtuous decisions instead of corrupt decisions. In a sense, Nolan justifies the vigilante by affirming faith in an individual's ability to elevate themselves to an image that functions similar to, say, a religious figure like Christ. And in my recent video about Ben Shapiro's first movie, I mentioned
he
that
talked
Nolan
about it.
is very much a conservative artist, and this is
Yeah.
partly what I'm talking about. So Reeves' Batman, in contrast, comes to a very different conclusion. And there's two scenes in particular where we see Pattinson's beliefs on justice and ultimately what can redeem a society challenged. So the first scene is when Batman tells Catwoman that her friend Anna made the wrong choices, and that's why she ended up hanging around murderous gangsters, and that's why she ended up dead, that there were consequences for her bad decisions. And Catwoman responds by saying, "Choices? What choices? Whoever you are, you obviously grew up rich." So it's here in this moment that Batman realizes that freedom isn't a binary idea. We, and when I say we, I can only really speak as a citizen of the United States, but we were largely brought up to believe that basically if you're not being forced to do something by gunpoint, then you're free to do anything or to take any alternative. The notion of freedom is very binary. You're either free or you're not. But this is, of course, an oversimplification because a person's freedom is on a spectrum. A rich person has exponentially more choices than a poor refugee like Anna, because when making a bad decision enables one to survive, the freedom to choose the nobler option is largely an illusion. A person with resources has a greater chance to never be put in such a situation, and so the freedom to choose good, to choose safety, to avoid a life of crime is much less hypothetical than it is for someone like Anna. So the second scene is when the Riddler does something similar with the concept of an orphan, that it too is not a binary idea, but is on a spectrum. Because sure, both Bruce Wayne and the Riddler are technically orphans because their parents are either dead or absent, but Wayne had billions of dollars, while the Riddler grew up surrounded by poverty, death, drug abuse, and all sorts of things that undeniably stunt and pervert a child's development. And when you put the word orphan on a spectrum like that, it puts a community's institutional obligations in an interesting light. So if a parent's job is to provide a safe environment for a child's development, and in the case of Bruce Wayne, he was able to achieve such an environment for safe development with money. Now, at least in theory, because the Riddler doesn't know that Bruce Wayne is Batman and that he has his own scars, then it's not only the absence of parents that creates a state of orphanhood and all the developmental challenges that come with it. It's also a lack of a social safety net and the impotence of our social institutions that are meant to elevate the needy. And thus, Batman realizes that punishing people for making bad decisions does nothing to prevent them from being put into the kind of compromising situations that breed bad decisions like crime. He essentially learns that without his money, he'd be no different than the criminals he beats up, or even the Riddler. For every criminal Batman punishes, there are 50 more people in bad situations where choosing good isn't a realistic option, or at least you would have to be as pure as Christ himself in order to choose that nobler option. But that's just not realistic. The kind of people who usually level those kind of expectations at people are the people that are in these very privileged situations where they can't actually even comprehend being put into a situation that's that compromising to their moral code. So Batman realizes that
yeah, we were talking about that.
order to truly rehabilitate to society, you can't do it through fear. You must do it through systemic rehabilitation. And this is why there's that one thug at the beginning of the movie who looks very reluctant to terrorize the other citizens, like they're playing Knockout or something. And there's this one thug who's got like half the face paint on, and the camera's always lingering on him in a close-up, like he doesn't actually want to be doing this, but he's doing it anyway because I guess we can assume he doesn't have any other choice. He's another Bruce Wayne without money. And thus, the movie ends with Batman framing himself as a force for the collective. He's assisting citizens out of the rubble and committing himself to be more oriented towards helping the people. And I think this is communicated in a particularly beautiful aerial top-down shot in which Batman holds a flare and he leads a crowd out of the flooded stadium, because he's vowing to lead people into the light instead of punishing the darkness. So if I were to frame this in philosophical terms, I'd say that Batman learns to frame his understanding of himself and Gotham as not an autonomous individual in a city, but as an idea proposed by French philosopher Gilles Deleuze, known as the dividual. Not the individual, but the dividual. It's the idea that we are all a part of and affect one another, and society isn't a collection of atomized individuals so much as it is a single complex organism in which we are all constantly influencing, molding, and constructing each other. I think this idea is embodied quite well in the lingering.
That's interesting. I like that idea.
Yeah, it's particularly complex. I know he likes to dive into some philosophy here.
Yeah. Well, I like that too, because I think when people talk about politics, for example, when they kind of bring up a false dichotomy when they talk about the individual versus the collective, and society should only be run based on the collective or only run based on the individuals, because everyone is both an individual and part of a collective.
Right. It's about striking the perfect balance.
Yeah, exactly.
Killed Bruce Wayne's parents. Was it Maroni? Was it Falcone? Was it some random thug? You see, it doesn't really matter, because this organism, this complex society of evolving, interlinked individuals is the thing that's sick, and that's what killed Thomas and Martha Wayne. So even if Batman did catch the killer and punished him, it wouldn't do anything, because vengeance is impotent in healing society. Now, ultimately, the film doesn't offer a prescription for rehabilitating society other than Batman vowing to do better for the people and the new mayor vowing to regain the public's faith in the institutions. But I mean, that's okay. This is a Batman movie, not a political manifesto. And when you compare it to Nolan's work, I think it's a really interesting contrast. How do we heal society? Through symbols and scapegoats, or through rehabilitation on the state, institutional, and civil society levels? Curious to hear what you guys think. You can let me know on my Twitch stream. My name is Calsary87. I'm going to be streaming.
Okay, we'll stop there.
Through symbols and scapegoats.
Yeah.
That's how you heal society.
Yeah.
JK.
Yeah, it seems like the problem of how to heal society is almost impossible to solve. But yeah, I think those well, as you can see from our thoughts in those reviews, it was a pretty interesting take on the Batman character overall, and I like how it was different, even though I still like the Dark Knight trilogy with Christopher Nolan and Christian Bale better, or more, I should say. But yeah, so you said you basically have similar thoughts overall, right?
I'm holding my opinions because if there are further movies in this new Batman, I can't yet really compare it to the entirety of Nolan's trilogy. It might be that there might be a stinker coming up or a banger coming up. I have no idea.
True.
So, yeah, it would be hard for me to pit this against that because it's simply incomplete at the moment.
Right. Yeah.
But as far as like an individual movie, like I think the Dark Knight movie is like better
for
than
sure.
this one.
Yeah.
But I can't say which trilogy is, if this is going to be a trilogy, it's going to be better or not.
Yeah, but I mean, I agree with you about that too. I mean, we'll wait to see, but I mean, I highly doubt they're going to be able to top, especially the Dark Knight, because that's the best of the whole trilogy. And I like the Dark Knight Rises a lot too. It'll be hard to fucking top those ones.
Yeah, because I think this is better than the one with Bane, even though I like Bane as a character.
Yeah.
Who was the voice of Bane?
Tom Hardy.
Was he the voice of Bane or the body of Bane?
I think he did both. It sounded like it was still his voice, at least.
Oh, because I thought someone did the voice and someone did the body.
I don't think so.
Are you sure?
I'm gonna Google that right now. Did Tom Hardy do the voice of Bane?
Yeah. Did Tom Hardy do the voice
Tom Hardy,
of Bane?
Hardy came up with Bane's voice on his own, and at first it was impossible to understand. He based the unique voice on a boxer named Bartley Gorman. Okay, so he did
Tom
do it.
Hardy did the voice himself.
I was born in the darkness. I was born in the darkness.
I've actually only seen that movie once. Can you believe that?
Really? I've probably seen it at least 3 times, I think. But probably similarly to most people, I think I've seen The Dark Knight more than any other movie in the trilogy.
Yeah, I've seen The Dark Knight probably 3 times. First movie twice, and the third movie once in the theater.
Okay. Yeah, the first one is my least favorite, but it's still a decent movie, but it's nowhere near as good as The Dark Knight or The Dark Knight Rises, in my opinion.
Yeah, my disappointment is that Ra's al Ghul's like one of my favorite Batman villains, and I didn't think they did him justice in that first movie.
Oh, okay. How is he different in the comics?
Well, for one, he's Middle Eastern. He's basically like a Middle Eastern ninja. And he's not a ninja. Like he uses like Middle Eastern weapons. So we're talking about like scimitars and stuff like that.
Okay.
He's basically immortal, and he's an eco-terrorist. What the first movie, he was an eco-terrorist, right? Like,
yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, he's his motives and stuff were the same, but he didn't seem super powered in any respect. I know he's supposed to be like one of Batman's most intelligent adversaries, and they usually spar using wits instead of, well, they do fight physically, and Ra's al Ghul is actually a very competent physical fighter, but he tries to outsmart Batman versus outmuscling Batman.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting. That would be interesting to see.
Yeah, and I know his daughter shows up in the third movie. And she's typically a love interest for Batman.
Ra's al Ghul's daughter?
Yeah, Talia.
Oh, okay. So they only did that in The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, she shows up, but she's not like a bad guy. She's usually does fall in love with Batman. I think in The Dark Knight Rises, like, doesn't Batman like kill her or something? If I'm not mistaken. Or she dies, right?
Yeah, he ends up I think it doesn't Catwoman kill her when she saves Batman
dies.
when she saves Batman when Bane is about to kill her, or is she? Oh wait, no, she dies when that truck crashes that has the bomb in it when she's driving it away trying to get away from Batman. Isn't that how she dies?
I don't remember, but I remember her dying.
Okay.
And usually she would never try to hurt Batman because she's like in love with him. So
okay.
And Batman would never want to try to hurt her because I think in some storylines they do get like married and stuff.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, Ra's al Ghul or Ra's al Ghul is one of my favorite Batman.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, because I'm less familiar with the comics, just in terms of the movies. Of course, the Joker in The Dark Knight is my favorite, but I know there are so many different representations of the Joker, even in the movies. Like we can have the darker Jokers like Heath Ledger, Joaquin Phoenix, and then you can have someone like Jim Carrey or what's that actor's name who was in he was the Joker in the even earlier ones?
Caesar something.
I can't believe I'm forgetting his fucking
How
name.
about Jack Nicholson or
Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, obviously some of them like that are way more campy.
Yeah, I think if you want to see some really, really wacky Batman stuff, I think there's a movie called Ninja Batman or something like that.
Oh, okay.
It's an anime. It's like so crazy. It's like freaking insane.
Oh,
I would highly recommend you to watch it. You feel like this is fucking crazy. I think it's called Ninja Batman or Samurai Batman, maybe Ninja Batman. I think it's Ninja Batman.
Oh, okay.
But it's an anime though, so it's pretty crazy.
That's interesting.
It was on Netflix at one point in time. I don't know where you can find it now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe it's worth checking out. All right. Well, yeah. Anyway, we've been talking for a long time, so we'll end it here now. Thanks everyone for watching. Hope you liked our thoughts in general and our thoughts about other people's opinions, like Ben Shapiro, Vaush, and Jared on the Batman in general. Let us know what you thought about the movie in the comments and what you thought about it in comparison to the Dark Knight trilogy and other Batman movies. And check out our previous and upcoming podcasts. I think next week we should try to finally do that chat on Neil Gaiman's book called Norse Mythology that we've been meaning to do for a while. Or if not, maybe we can see if Tristram can talk about Era 2 of Mistborn, if we can get into the first book of that next weekend too. And then also next weekend, of course, on your channel, Woke Centrist, people should check out. We're going to talk about book 5 in Terry Goodkind's mediocre fantasy Sword of Truth series, the book 5 called Soul of the Fire. And also check out my last podcast that I did with my friends Parker and Shane Kennedy, who are huge Jordan Peterson fans. And we talked about psychedelics as a religious experience, along with some of Jordan Peterson's thoughts on God and consciousness and atheism. And I was disagreeing with them because they're both big Jordan Peterson fans about God and atheism, but we were agreeing a lot about psychedelics. And we're probably going to talk again sometime in the near future more about God and atheism, I think, and perhaps other subjects. So check those out too. And check out all my upcoming videos. Subscribe to the channel. Click the like button. Click the bell to be notified when I come out with new videos. Go to my Patreon page, and if you want to give me anywhere from like $1 to $10, $100, $1,000, $10,000, that would be great. And like I always say, I love you all. Keep being the tiny beam of light that shines through the almost impenetrable darkness in the universe. And most importantly, always remember this: the funk cures all, and groove is in the heart. And check out the Batman movie. It's a pretty interesting, different take. And the Dark Knight movies are the best Batman movies. And anything else you want to say before we end it there, Dusty?
No, you pretty much went through my plugs for next week. And yeah, that'll be really cool to talk about this very weird Sword of Truth book.
Yeah.
Have you finished it yet?
No, not yet. I think I'm maybe about 500 pages into it.
Oh, the end is so wacky. Okay. It's weird because you have this complete POV that's like seems unjustified, and I think I know you know what I mean. Like this.
Oh
these
yeah, with those characters who are the Hakens and that guy.
The Hakens and the Anders.
Yeah, the Hakens and the Anders, and the Fitch character who gets gets coerced into beating up this woman, and then he escapes with his friend, and yeah, all that stuff.
And more, more Terry Goodkindisms, all the evil characters are rapists.
It was funny too. I noticed a huge Terry Goodkindism when the other day I read literally almost verbatim. Richard listened in rapt attention as Kalen told him about the downfall of reason. It's such an objectivist thing. Yeah.
I guess I must have just kind of glossed over that part.
Yeah. That's such an objectivist Ayn Rand thing.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, anyway, check that out on Dusty's channel next week on Woke Centrist. And oh yeah, I forgot to mention too, I just on my channel the other day reposted our chat on your channel with us talking about Hollow Man, because that was tremendously popular for some reason. And it's a good movie.
Why at all.
Yeah, me neither.
But I'll get you the Joker chat.
Sweet.
Sometime this week.
All right. Thanks. Fun to talk as always, man. And thanks everyone for watching, and adios until next time.